can't you? With us lying down upon each other's side. Funny how it feels when the water's on the other side. Funny how it feels when the water's on the other side. Now I remember standing tippy toe, eye to eye next to you, sizing you up, I'm gonna tell you everything. Got another year and another guy and another guy and another year. Just don't many your eyes are so descriptive. And I don't need an intercept telling me that you're so very afraid. With us lying down upon each other's side. Funny how it feels when the water's on the other side. Funny how it feels when the water's on the other side. Funny how it feels when the water's on the other side. Funny how it feels when the water's on the other side. And I remember standing tippy toe, eye to eye next to you, sizing you up, I'm gonna tell you everything. Got another year and another guy and another guy and another year. Just don't many your eyes are so descriptive. I don't need an interceptor telling me that you're so very afraid. With us lying down upon each other's side. Funny how it feels when the water's on the other side. Funny how it feels when the water's on the other side. Funny how it feels when the water's on the other side. Funny how it feels when the water's on the other side.
Because this craziness, this sickness in this country now is shot through the whole society. You know, people in law enforcement have also succumbed to right-wing extremism and white nationalism. Again, what this points up is how pervasive and vast a problem this is, and we will be dealing with it for a long time.
I said, something's wrong here, something's really wrong, can't have happened. and we fight. We fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. As this enormous crowd shows, we have truth and justice on our side. So we're going to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. I love Pennsylvania. And we're going to the Capitol. But we're going to try and give our Republicans, we're going to try and give them the kind of pride and boldness that they need to take back our country. So let's walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. I want to thank you all. God bless you, and God bless America. We will never give up. We will never concede.
We can take that place.
And then do what?
Take on fight.
damn, I love that video. All right, I'm live, and I should probably switch so that you can see me. How's everybody doing? I'm doing well. It's been an interesting week. The news has been neat. I don't even know what the hell is going on in the world anymore. But then again, I never really did. I think the big shock everyone's talking about is Dylan Burns turning on Destiny and crowning CTV as the hippy dippy champion. I mean, I did not see it coming. Definitely a little bit of the Puro Resu in the debate sphere. No one's talking about that. I'm just kidding. But I watched it this morning and I thought it was weird and then fun. I'm all for when people lean into shtick a little bit. It makes me happy. So last night I was out carousing with my hooligan friends. That was good. It feels good to be able to carouse a little bit. I went to see the homie Nate Trash. If you're not following Trash Talk with Nate Trash, you probably should be. Went to see the homies band Horrify and Spit of the Sin, Pride Lands, and who opened? Oh, Hockey Moms. It was a fun show. For an old school punk like me, it was a good time. Did not get in the pit because I'm like 100 years old, and I was literally like, every part of my body's like, get in that pit, and then the brain part is like, wait, you're gonna get hurt. So I chose not to, and I think I made the right choice. But fuck, I miss live music. I miss moshing. The funny thing is, I'm fairly certain I could just do fine in a pit these days, but I'm also fairly certain that I would wind up breathing all the heavy, just like almost immediately. COVID has definitely robbed me of some of my cardio powers, but when the weather stays nice, I'm gonna get back to jogging and doing all the healthy things that everyone wants to hear a live stream about. How you too can look like this. All right. So it has been, aside from the Dylan Burns thing, there was that Ukraine thing, Pat King getting his bail denied, which was awesome, and a bunch of other stuff. So we'll talk about a little bit of everything today. I'm not like super 100% prepared today because of the carousing last night. Normally what I do is I wake up in the morning and I on stream day I kind of keep a list of topics, and then I think about them and go, hey, what do I want to say about these things, and get a little bit of sort of concrete foundation. But I didn't do that today because I was like, hey, my brains don't work. I'll just do something else. So yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be entertaining, fun-tertaining, as it were. And all in all, it should be good. Oh, I realize I gotta. That's fine. I'm talking to myself here. Who talks to themselves on stream? Seriously. So you know what? I think I'm gonna start with. I'm sure everyone has seen the celebrity cringe videos that have been happening regarding this whole Ukraine thing. The one that I saw was that lady celebrity singing a special song she wrote to like cradle Putin in her loving and warm embrace. So it made me think of this incredibly tacky song that I had to sing way back when I was in mixed chorus in high school, which was just choir. And I want to make a celebrity cringe moment. So I don't think anyone's really watching, but if you're watching, I guess there's a couple people watching. If you're watching, now's the time to start clipping, because this is going to be probably legendarily bad. And so this is me creating celebrity cringe specifically for Mr. Putin. If I could go back in time and console him as a child, I feel like it's a necessary thing. So here we go. singing. It's just them muted. I will sing a song for a Russian child. It's a song of promise to me. I will sing a song for a little child, any child whose dreams seem small. I will reach my hand out to lend a hand. I will reach my hand across the sea. For the children there are just like you and me. Mr. Putin, if you're listening, find that caring nurture inside you and do better, buddy. Oh, I don't even know. He sings a song from the Cancun. She's singing from the Pacific. Oh, shit, I really should have thought this out. Either way, the song they sing is one of harmony. Harmony. Joined strong and rising to a place where hearts and minds are always free. Yeah, it turns out I forget half the song. Oh, a Russian child. It's a may he never feel hunger or cold. Mr. Putin, don't be hungry. While children sing over all the land, hand in hand and thousand old. And I'll sing a song for the child at heart. There's a child inside you, Mr. Putin, in whose land rests all his people's worth. For the song I sing, for the song they sing, is a wish for peace on earth. Mr. Putin, stop being a cunt. Stop shelling all the people. A wish for peace on earth. Thank you. One day, I'll be a celebrity, and this video will be huge. Everyone will be like, oh my God, remember that time when Big Ugly Jim ended Russian involvement in the Ukraine just by singing a beautiful song? And I'll be like, yeah, I remember that. That was terrible. That was the cringiest shit I've done ever. And I feel really good about it. I feel really goddamn good about it. So, yeah, that was that. You can end your clipping now. And then make sure to edit it so it looks like I'm super supportive of Putin, because that's how the internet do. But may as well talk about some Ukraine stuff. So I am not a foreign policy expert. And when I say that, I don't mean like, well, I'm a foreign policy guy. I just, I don't want to call myself an expert. I mean, legitimately, I am not a foreign policy expert. I am only speaking my own thoughts on what I consider to be a pretty horrific situation. And hopefully I don't say anything terribly stupid, but here goes. A lot of people are complaining about people who are saying that this invasion is wrong, and they're going, well, yeah, but you're supporting Nazis. And they talk about that Azov battalion, whatever they were called. I don't have details on that. I read up a little bit about it when I started seeing it, and that is a shitty group, or was, or is, I don't know. It's kind of a tough thing to be able to understand now that time has passed. So my understanding of this is that the original battalion was a far-right militia who eventually... Ukraine has a real problem. Maybe I'll backstep a bit. Ukraine has a real problem with far-right movements. Absolutely. I would say that is directly related to Russia. A lot of those far-right movements, from what I understand, and again, I'm stupid, but a lot of those far right movements are related to particularly along the border of Russia. There's a lot of areas where people are super, when the Soviet Union ended, they felt like they were Russians rather than Ukrainians. And that's valid. But when you start like doing armed insurrections, your validity starts to get a little bit less. And from what I understand, the Azov Battalion, I hope I'm saying that right. Let's pull that up just so I don't feel like a big dumb dummy. Azov Battalion. Okay, so from what I understand, they basically were a far right, super cringe, super shitty nationalist militia that eventually sort of got added. So you have like your army, your navy, and then you have the Azov Battalion as part of like a division of the armed forces, which I would say is a pretty shitty decision. And I would say that it's really unfortunate. It's hard to know what real is because I'm just a fucking Canadian sitting here, thousands of miles away reading Wikipedia shit. So like I do not pretend to know what the fuck I'm talking about. But it's a thing. It's a thing. What I understand from what I have read, and this could be way wrong, is that essentially after they were brought into the fold of the Ukrainian military system, there have been processes to try and de-radicalize and make the Azov Battalion a more civilian militia type of vibe rather than being a right-wing terror group. Either way, probably shitty, and it's unfortunate that we have the West has sent weapons to this particular group as part of sending weapons to the Ukraine. It sucks. I don't know enough about it to say who's in the right and who's in the wrong, but I will say this. If, let's just pretend for a moment that the Azov Battalion is actually a super far right thing and Ukraine, holy shit, the Ukraine is super far right. Let's just pretend like that's 100% true. So is Russia. Russia is a super far right country. I would say that Russia is a fascist state. And I'm not using that term hyperbolically. I'm legitimately like, the most core, basic, stupid high school definition of fascism is you have a functioning free capitalist society, but a totalitarian ruler that is not democratic. And while Russia has elections, like the leading cause of death in Russia is going up against Vladimir Putin in an election. So I wouldn't call that a functioning democracy. Putin has a long history of his opponents accidentally getting poisoned. So, to me, it's a pretty easy thing to say. And so let's pretend for a moment that both are super Nazis. Then that essentially wipes out any picking sides for who's right and who's wrong in terms of politics. And instead we can just look at the details and say, okay, well, one of those sides is a country that doesn't want to be invaded, and the other one is a country that is invading them. And they're invading them with all this talk of like, oh, we're only going to attack civilian targets, or military targets, sorry, and then blowing up people's houses. So, I mean, I feel like it's pretty easy to pick a winner on this one in terms of who's morally right. Now, all that said, I don't believe the Ukraine to be a far-right country. I think that's a real fucking stretch. I would say that they have far-right elements, like every country, trucker convoy. But the Ukraine is a functioning democracy, if I understand correctly. The country is, it's trying. It's trying to be good people. And then Russia comes in and swoops in with a bunch of guns and bombs and shit, and things go very south very quickly. And so I think it's pretty easy to go, hey, one of these people is in the right, and it's not Mr. Putin. I'm not a big Putin fan, I will definitely admit. I believe, interestingly enough, that the very real cyber terrorism that comes from Russia and the very real misinformation campaigns that come from Russia have been fostering the right-wing parties and the right-wing groups, far right, the further right, the more fostered, have largely been coming from Russia. And so I just can't get into that. If you look at a lot of the accounts that the convoy people were praising, a lot of them were like, they were created in the last 6 months, and they were created in Russia. I still have a 7 on my hand. I notice from my paying cover last night at the gig. So ignore the 7. So I think I've tried to keep abreast on what's happening. And I find that that's very difficult because there's a lot of information, there's a lot of misinformation, and I've tried hard to not get too lost in the hyperbolic and too quick to, like, right away when the invasion started, I put a post on Facebook and I was like, holy shit, this is happening. And then I saw footage of Odessa being shelled, and I was like, oh my God, like that's bigger than just the 2 territories they were talking about. And as soon as I hit post, I was like, was that valid footage? Did I just get duped? And so I tried to dig in, and I couldn't find any reference at that time to Odessa being involved. And so I was like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I need to remember that we can't ever trust information until we actually can trust information, and then it's very difficult. So that was a whoopsie doodle on my end. But suffice to say, things have gone from real fucked up to real fucked up over there. I am heartened by the resistance of the Ukrainian people. I love, like, the difference between my fearless leader, Jason Kenney, and their fearless leader. When Russia shows up in Kiev, with guns, he grabs a gun and hits the street and is like, let's fucking do this. When the truckers show up and honk their horns 3 times, Jason Kenney's like, okay, right, all mandates are gone. Okay, please, God, guys, vote for me still. Please. Just disgraceful as far as I'm concerned. But I would expect nothing better from Mr. Kenney. Anyways, that's a little neither here nor there. I think a lot of what I've seen, I agree with some of the takes on it, being that Putin has, it really looks like he's bitten off more than he can chew. The initial assault was pervasive and powerful, and a lot of people were caught up in some shelling and all this stuff, and it was like, holy crap, things are going real fucking hard there, and it was completely creepy. But then sort of time marched on, and we started hearing initially, like, Putin saying, we have totally destroyed their aircraft abilities. They will never fly again. Hey, all power Russia. And then that turned out to be bullshit. So I mean, I don't know how it's all going to come out in the wash, but I will say that it's interesting to see that this has not been a cakewalk for Russia, and that the Ukrainian people, from their military on down, have been as courageous as they have been in standing firm. And I support 100% the idea of fighting back against invaders. It's interesting because, like, we just got finished all this convoy stuff. I was gonna say convoy talk. And realistically, I mean, like I said earlier, the convoy gets a lot of its far right talking points from Russia, the far right totalitarian dictatorship I lovingly call fascist Russia. And a lot of people are pointing out just how really simpy it sounds when you've got actual Ukrainians defending their homeland against an invading far right force, and then you've got trucker convoy people. They're not truckers. I keep saying trucker because it's the wording, but they're not truckers. They're just far right activists, or by and large. And you've got them whining about mandates and going, I have to wear a face diaper. I got zero fucks to give. I had some fucks. They all went away. You know what? And that's not even fair. I haven't been able to give fucks about anything since COVID started. There's just been so much bullshit. And I've talked about this before, but before COVID, I went camping with a buddy of mine, and we were talking about is a buddy that I go camping with every year when there's not a pandemic happening, and we were talking about sort of what the world needs to do and all this kind of stuff, and I was like, you know what, we need a pandemic. And yeah, good morning all, and fuck Putin. Absolutely, I am Canadian. Good to see you, my friend. Anyways, so we were talking. I was like, what we need is a pandemic. We need to have this huge thing that will force us all to work together and come together for the common good and remind us of our shared humanity and like all this stuff. And I was like, super, that would be dope. Wouldn't it be cool? I may have been wrong. I am clearly not a mystic, because that was a mistake. Mistake. See what I did there? I'm basically a rapper. Watching people lose their mind about the freedoms they're losing, and then watching Ukrainians actually having like legitimate, valid threats against their freedom is like, it's night and day. From a buddy in YYC, hey, XXXXX, I'm assuming that's your name, and I know your name, so I won't say it, but Mr. X. It is all very overwhelming. So far, family's doing okay. Only one on active military duty, but back in Western Ukraine, friends are getting ready for the worst. Overall, war is a brutal business, and we all will pay in one way or another for action of someone else. Thanks for reaching out. Yeah, and that's the thing that sucks is like, I don't want war. War bad. The brutal reality, though, is that so is not standing up in a circumstance like this. Like, I hear people talk about how American imperialism, all this kind of stuff, and it's just not that. I frankly, I don't support American imperialism, but I do support standing up to fascists. Which is, I know, a hot take these days. Everyone immediately, it's always well, that guy's like Hitler. And I hate that, because so often that is poorly used. In this case, though, I mean, like, what we're looking at is the Sudetenland, right? This is literally a leader going, we need breathing room, comrades. And this has to not be allowed. And I like the idea of sanctions if they are targeted, which I believe they are. Let's look at what the sanctions are, because I honestly can't say, and I am curious as all beans. So let me just pop over to the Googles and switch my view so you can see what we're doing. And let's just sort of talk about these a little bit. Russian sanctions. Let's look at Canada's sanctions. So this is from the Government Canada website. So there's, according to them, types of sanctions. There's asset freezes, there's export and import restrictions, and there's financial prohibitions. The regulations impose an asset freeze and dealings prohibition on designated persons listed in Schedule 1, which include both individuals and entities. It is prohibited for any person in Canada and any Canadian outside Canada to deal in any property wherever situated, held by, or on behalf of a designated person whose name is listed in Schedule 1. And Schedule 1, for the record, let's see, before we, let's take a look at Schedule 1, if I can find the fucking thing. Well, of course not. Is there a link to Schedule 1? That'd be handy. My understanding is that Schedule 1 refers to specific individuals who are high ups in the Russian government, and not to sort of John Q. Public. So I'm not sure who Schedule 1 is directly, but that is my understanding. Enter into or facilitate directly or indirectly any transaction related to such a dealing, provide any financial or other related services in respect of such a dealing, make any goods wherever situated available to a designated person listed in Schedule 1, provide any financial or related service to or the benefit of a designated person listed in Schedule 1. The individuals listed in Part 1.1 of Schedule 1 to the regulations are also inadmissible to Canada until the Immigration and Refugee Protection, or under the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act. So again, this is sort of like the top rich dudes in and banks in Russia. So this is not about we're going to target all Russians. We're not talking about food embargoes and things like that. Starve out the enemy. We're talking about can't sell to them, can't buy from them, can't let them in the country, which just seems reasonable. The regulations also impose restrictions on certain sectors, such as the financial and energy sectors. With some exceptions, they prohibit any person in Canada and Canadians abroad from dealing in new debt of longer than 30 days maturity in relation to persons listed in Schedule 2, 90 days maturity in relation to persons listed in Schedule 3, or new debt without maturity in relation to persons listed in 3.1. Additionally, the regulations prohibit any person in Canada or Canadians abroad from dealing in new securities in relation to persons listed in Schedule 2. So I don't speak all the financial talk, but what that sounds like to me is essentially we're saying you can't lend money to not just the Schedule 1, which would be your top tier bad guys, but there are a couple of different tiers, presumably some businesses, and they're not allowed to be borrowing money except under very particular conditions. Is there a list of names in Schedule 3? I wonder how many names. Yeah, I want to look into if we can find who's in what schedule, and if we could figure out, sort of who they are. Causing, assisting, or promoting prohibited activities is likewise prohibited. That feels like a weird sentence, but it actually makes sense because of the assisting or promoting. Regulations provide a review mechanism to remove names from the schedule upon receipt of an application from a designated person. So there is still a process by which we can say, you know what, got the wrong name, take Jeremiah off that. Exceptions to the asset freeze and dealings. Hit the wrong button. Exceptions to the asset freeze and dealings prohibition on designated persons listed in Schedule 1 are available for the following: payments made on behalf of or by or on behalf of designated persons pursuant to anyways, I don't think that's important. Is there? So that's kind of looking like the majority of it. Let's jump back now and see if we can figure out Schedule 1. Oh, Schedule 21. That's the number I wanted there. I'm not seeing. I'm sure the answers are out there, and I probably can find it if I dig further. But oh wait, this might have links. Let's just do a find schedule. Jesus, Canadian government, get your shit together. Actually do hyperlinking, maybe, would be a thing that would be fun. Oh, here we go. Okay, so our number, schedule 1, part 1 is a grand total of, well, it's more than I thought, 120 names. Part 1.1 is, so that part 1 was just individuals. Part 1.1 is individuals' gross human rights violations. That's a terrible list to find your name on. Holy shit! And that's only 9. Part 2 is entities, which is banks and businesses. Strойgas Montage is getting a little bit lambasted there. Probably a good thing. I don't know anything about them. But there is a total of 71 companies that are on the list. And then Schedule 2 was our lesser but still smashy sanctions. Entities would be a bunch of banks and aircraft corporation. Schedule 3, a very small list of some more organizations. Schedule 4 is goods. So this would be... I like how they say column 1 and column 2. Like, I know they're columns. So there's seamless stainless steel line pipe of a kind used for oil and gas pipelines. Oh, there's a shock that we're still gonna allow that. I'm assuming that that's what Schedule 4 is things that we will still allow people to buy. So pipelines, drill pipe. Steel tubing used in drilling for oil and gas. I don't know if, again, like I don't have what happened with Section 4 in front of me. I don't know if these are things that we're like accepting from the process or if they are, you know what, let's just see if we can quickly find from the top. We'll just look for Schedule 4. And we'll go up to where it is in the Act. It is prohibited for any person in Canada and any Canadian outside Canada to export, sell, supply, or ship any good referred to in column 1, wherever situated to Russian or any person in Russia for use in offshore oil exploration or production at a length greater than 500. Like, do we really have to go, you know, if you're 450 meters, we can sell you all of these things. We just can't do it if you're 500 meters. Like, that just feels stupid. Oil exploration or production in the Arctic, or shale oil exploration or production. Neat. So yeah, it makes sense then that this is a lot of pipeline related stuff. Yeah. What other schedules are? Oh, there's no other. So that's our sanctions, is essentially, as Canada, what we're doing is we're saying, hey, we're not fucking around. This list of very targeted people and very targeted organizations are not allowed to be supported financially right now, which is probably good. Let's just take a look at the first couple of names and just do some Google searching. So we got Sergei Yuryevich Glazyev. So let's go for a new tab and type in that. Who is this person? I bet it's one of these people, but I don't know. Because I know it's not that one. That's the Harper bot. Okay. Let's try removing the... Okay, hang on. Sergei Yuryevich. And what was the last name? Sorry. Glaziev. Okay, so it's this person here. There we go. Deputy Prime. Thank you, I Am Canadian, for being quicker than I am. Holy shit. That was awkward to watch. I'm like an old man, so I'm like, let's go to the Googles. Okay, so politician and economist, member of the National Financial Council of the Bank of Russia, and since 2008, a full member of the Russian Academy of Sciences. Glaziev was Minister of Foreign Economic Relations in Boris Yeltsin's cabinet from 92 to 93, a member of the State Duma from 93 to 2007, one of the leaders of the electoral bloc Rodina from 2003 to 2004, candidate for the presidency of the Russian Federation in 2004. I'm surprised that means he's still alive. And advisor to the president of the Russian Federation on regional economic integration from 2012 to 2019. Leader of the Rodina party, once upon a time succeeded by Dmitry Rogozin. I'm not trying to appropriate the voice. I'm just trying to be halfway decent about stuff. So son of a Russian father and a Ukrainian mother, Glaziev attended Moscow State University, elected to the State Duma, returned once again and was elected, this time as an independent on the list of the Communist Party of the Russian Federation. He clashed with party leadership in 2003, abandoned the party to help form Rodina, a nationalist party on the right wing of the Russian political spectrum. That year, he became one of the 37 Rodina candidates elected to the State Duma. During the election, portrayed himself as a champion of social justice and an opponent of political corruption, particularly in the form of Russian oligarchs, said the oligarch. Following a split between Rogozin and Sergei Baburin in 2005, Glaziev rejoined the Rodina faction and reconciled with his former partner, retired from politics in 2007. Putin appointed him as presidential aide for the coordination of the work of federal agencies in developing the customs union of Belarus, Kazakhstan, and Russia. Glaziev has authored more than 40 books and hundreds of pamphlets and research papers. One of his books has been published in English translation by the LaRouche Movement's Executive Intelligence Review as Genocide, Russia, and the New World Order. In 1985, he was awarded the Gold Kondratiev Medal by the International N.D. Kondratiev Foundation and the Russian Academy of Natural Sciences. On March 17, 2014, a day after the Crimean status referendum, Glaziev was one of the first 7 persons who were placed under executive sanctions by President Obama. So he's been sanctioned before. He should be good at this. Froze his assets in the U.S. and banned him from entering in the U.S. However, according to Glaziev, he has not been negatively affected by those sanctions because he has neither property nor accounts of any sorts in the U.S., nor had he any plans to come to America. So it sounds like an example of somebody who is favored by Putin, and that's personally, I feel like that's good enough reason for me to be like, fuck that guy. But that's unfair. Anyways, hard to know the particulars for anyone, but it's a fairly specific list, and I think it's interesting that they're all named by name and not this is exactly being targeted at certain people, as opposed to pretending that we'll have targeted sanctions and then just doing fuel embargoes or food embargoes or whatever, because that shit is cringe. That's where you start hurting individual people, and it turns out your old pal Big Ugly Jim ain't about hurting the individual people. I'm not anti-Russian. I'm not even anti-far right Russian existence. They're allowed to pick their own government. They're allowed to have their own political leanings. I don't got shit to say about that. What I do have shit to say about is when you start invading other countries. That feels bad. I wrote a thing on Facebook, and I think it sort of sums up where I'm at with all of this. And it's this sort of strange reality of being a Generation X kid. I was just about to turn 16 when the Berlin Wall started to come down. Something that we never thought we would see. But at the same time, we all knew we would see. It was a weird time. It was a strange world to grow up in because, we were in the heart of the Red Scare, but at the same time, Russia was starting to crumble. Gorbachev was so much more reasonable than previous people and was talking about peace and perestroika and glasnost. And we knew what those words were and what they meant, and that they meant an easing of that tension and potentially the end of the Cold War. But at the same time, I mean, we were still fighting in Afghanistan by proxy wars. We were still having proxy wars, basically all over the world. So it was kind of this, there's this perpetual fear, this perpetual noise of bad things are going to happen. And at the same time, we were living. It just became background noise. So it's this horrible trauma-inducing background noise that you just sort of get used to, That's the thing about Generation X. I don't think a lot of people understand that we were essentially the generation that had no power and no voice and no anything. We had punk rock and metal, right? That was pretty much it. So we sucked it up, We stood for our values and we did stuff, but mostly we just sucked it up. The thing to remember is that this is not the USSR. It's Russia, and I think that will be his downfall. If it ain't USSR out of Moscow. Speaking good. It ain't USSR out of Moscow. It's a murdering, lying dictator from Russia. No ideology. It's Putin and nothing more. Yeah, and that's why I say that Putin is a fascist. Is he has all the hallmarks. I don't think he's a successful fascist in the sense that I don't think his people buy into his story. But he is an authoritarian leader with delusions of making Russia again, and that ain't gonna be a thing. The Ukraine is an easy first step for him to dip his toe into that, and I think what's gonna happen is NATO's not gonna be putting up with shit. And I don't think he's not in a position where he can occupy the Ukraine. He's not in a position where he can, start spreading back to the borders of the USSR or even beginning a process like that. And their economy just fucking nosedived as soon as he started doing this, and it's only going to get worse the longer this goes on, in my opinion. Particularly if these high-end or sort of high-level sanctions are actually have teeth behind them, because frankly, if they don't, it's kind of a shame. But if they do, and they actually cause the oligarchs in Russia to sweat, that could very well lead to the end of the Putining. I don't know. That guy's pretty Teflon. It's hard to imagine a modern Russia without him. Kind of imagine it would be the similar vibe to like if you were living, during the reign of Stalin and imagining a Russia without Stalin. Hard to really wrap your head around, right? Russia without Lenin, absolutely. The people were all thinking about, eventually we'll abolish government and we'll have like a socialist communist state where we all just sort of work together for the common good, and won't that be super cool? And then Stalin came along and everyone was like, maybe we won't do that. Maybe we'll try tyranny. And it worked out exactly as tyrants often do. Lots of dead people and no real harm done to the man himself. So yeah, I don't think that like Russia doesn't really have an ideology that I can foresee. It's literally just the whims of the Putin. We will have free elections, and then I will kill anyone who runs against me. I want Ukraine. Let's just take it. And the process, the support that they've been giving to the Ukrainian far right for such a long time has been nothing but a thorn in the side. And then all of a sudden, they take it to the next level, and we're seeing actual war shit. It's creepy. It's fucking creepy. I feel bad for average Russians. I feel bad for anyone in the Ukraine right now. this is a single-minded tyrant who wants to throw his temper tantrum and begin a push of world domination. And I don't think he can accomplish it, but I think he will hurt a lot of people along the way. All right, I'm going to take a pause. I'm going to step outside and have me one of them things I do that are horrible and no one should do. I will return. And when I return, we can continue to talk about this if you want, or we can talk about some other stuff. I'm happy to talk about the Pat King situation. I will leave you with the idea, the mental image of Jason Kenney versus Zelensky from Kiev. I think it's hilarious that Jason Kenney is such a fucking coward. And here they have a guy who's their, what is Zelensky? I think he's like well, anyways, it doesn't matter what his role is. I can't remember if he's like the president or if he's a mayor or if whatever the fuck. I've seen a lot of information the last few days. My brain's full. But homeboy's like a TV star turned politician who now has, a gun in his hand and wandering the streets of Kiev fighting for freedom. And Jason Kenney is just like this giant pussy. We can also talk about the Alberta budget. We can talk about the Emergencies Act. There's a article that I found that I haven't read yet, but I want to, called Jyoti Gondek is Not Your Friend, and I think that'll be interesting. So a bunch of different ideas. We can figure out what we want to do when I return from doing that horrible thing I do. But in the meantime, enjoy the sweet, soothing sounds of me making bad electronic music. on my face and get the music stopped, and we can continue. All right. Yeah, it's good to be able to stream. I enjoy this. I had a debate last week. It was my first ever like panel debate thing. It was for Hippy Dippy Recruitment. I don't think I was the best debater in the world, but I think I did fairly well, and I'm happy with it. All in all, did not feel stupid. So that was kind of fun. I have recently changed my stance on the whole debate thing, and it's kind of based around the idea that as a lefty, I kind of need to be in a position where I am actively standing up for what I believe and what I do and all that kind of stuff, and pushing for the world that I think should be pushed for. And we were talking about the convoy, and so I think let's talk a little bit about. We can come back to the Ukraine-Russia situation if people want, but I was so happy this week to see both Tamara Lich, who I believe the proper pronunciation is Leach, like legitimately, but I'm gonna continue to call her Tamara Lich because fuck her. She did not get her bail, and more importantly, Pat King did not get his bail. That just warms my motherfucking heart. Those are bad people. They're just bad people, and they did bad things. They should not be roaming free. That's just how the world goes. And I get that there are people who will disagree with me on that. You're allowed to. You're wrong, but you're allowed to. Coffee good. Anyways, so the blockades are gone, meaning that Coots and that bridge, the Alexandria Bridge or whatever it was called, a bridge in Ontario, are both theoretically open. I haven't looked recently to find out if there's more shenanigans happening there, but there's still lots more shenanigans. The truckers are continuing to drive around in various cities across Canada. And again, I gotta stop calling them truckers because they're not truckers. The thing that I think a lot of Americans fuck up on this topic is that this is not about truckers. Yes, there are truckers who are involved. Absolutely. It's a very small number, but there are truckers that are involved. But this is not that. This isn't about ending mandates. This isn't about any of that shit. This is just people pushing to have a tantrum. And it's funny because like last night, again, I was out at this gig, and one of the bands played a cover of Killing in the Name of. Was it Killing in the Name? Yeah, Fuck You, I Won't Do What You Tell Me. And they were all white kids. And that just always annoys the shit out of me when white kids sing Killing in the Name of, because that, like, fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Like, it's a cool moment. And white kids are like, yeah, you don't have to. The society you live in is basically going to allow you to just do whatever the fuck you want. I made a joke because Bodies of Everest, one of the bands I'm in, the keyboardist is a Latino man from South America. And I was like, we should cover that song, and then stop like 3 notes in and be like, no, if we sing this, Miguel's going to get killed. Because that's kind of how I could see that going down, honestly. The brutal reality is that you know, white people storming for their freedoms, they got their way. Ironically, they were going to get their way anyways, because mandates are just, they're not popular right now. They will not be gone forever, or at least I don't think they will be gone forever, because I don't think COVID and the threat that it currently is posing will be gone forever. I do believe that there is a point where we will be accepting business as usual, and how COVID continues to mutate is sort of that's the open-ended question, right? We talk about back to normal, and what we're talking about really is we're not going to eradicate this disease. we're going to get to a point where it is manageable to live a normal, reasonably healthy life with, you know, the normal freedoms that we have in a world where there is still COVID. And that probably comes from COVID being more manageable. And that's an out of our control thing. So Omicron, everyone's all like, oh my God, Omicron, it's nothing. And, you know, comparatively to Delta, that is true. But that does not equate to this is not a thing. We're still dealing with problems with our healthcare system. A healthcare system that Jason Kenney does not support or want. And maybe we'll talk about that too in a little bit. But until we're in a situation where flare-ups in COVID numbers don't result in potentially crushing our healthcare system, it's kind of how shit's gonna go. We're gonna continue to have to say there is a flare-up in this area, and it might even be more localized like that. It might be, you know, that, you know, Calgary has a flare-up. Other cities in Alberta or in Canada are not terribly worried, but, you know, in Calgary, you're going to have to mask. You're going to have to, you know, not be gathering in large groups and shit. Like, it's just how you manage a pandemic. And it's adorable when they're like, no, you can't tell me what to do. Well, yeah, we can, because you're not acting in good faith. And behaviors like what the people in the convoy are fighting for are what causes this to continue to be a problem. Now, realistically, and this is like a bitter pill to swallow, the anti-maskers in Canada, as an example, have not been the reason why we have variants. That's because we're not doing a good job of vaccination worldwide. There's a large pool of people who are not vaccinated, and that's where you get mutations occurring. There will be mutations in Canada or the United States or whatever, but comparatively, just the sheer volume of people who haven't had access to the vaccine in places like Africa, that just means that there's going to be more and more problems. And that's a concern for me, because it's the far right dudes that are so loudly mouthing off about all of this right now. And I could see that spilling over into, you know, like we saw a rise in anti-Asian hate crimes at the start of this. And if we continue to be in a situation where dangerous variants are happening in Africa, for example, I could see that leading to a spike in hate crimes towards African Americans, and that ain't okay. None of it's okay. Whole thing is really, really silly. Anyways, Pat King did not get bail. Was very happy to hear that. And I did a little dance. When I heard. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not better than that. I did a little dance. He's a terrible person. He actually actively is a threat to the life and limb of people that I know. That sounds like some hyperbolic, like, oh, you know, his words are, no, I mean, like, homeboy has brought counter protesters that were violent to times where friends of mine have been protesting things. One of those involved someone from his side of the fence driving a car into my friend Curtis. I wouldn't say that's not fair. I know Curtis. I have nothing. I don't know him well enough to call him a friend, but Curtis is an example. And then, because they're all fucking funny, they made posters of like the front of a Dodge truck with like blood on it or whatever, and like insert Antifa here, because they're all about freedom. They're a big freedom movement. They want the freedom to stop anyone who they don't like from thinking things that they don't like. And you know, you can argue that all you want, but when people are getting harassed for wearing masks, that's an example. If I choose to wear a mask when I leave my house, whether you like it or not, suck a dick. Like that's a choice that I can make. There's no law saying I cannot leave my house with a mask on. Now this doesn't happen to me because I'm a fairly large and fairly imposing person. But you know, you hear a lot of people who are getting harassed by, particularly women. Let's call a spade a spade. Turns out white nationalists are not always super keen on feminism and women not being in the kitchen. But yeah, you'll hear regularly stories of people getting harassed for wearing a mask. Well, if you're all about freedom, then you have to respect that I have the freedom to wear that mask. Unless you're not really about freedom. Could it be? Fucking dinks. And yeah, so Pat King has like actively hurt people that I know, people that I care about, and slams and smears them all over the place. So yeah, not crying to see old Pat get denied his bail. That whole thing was surreal. Like he found this woman, Comics, however you say that or whatever, to like, I will put up a $50,000 bond on my house, and we can like get him home, and we can buy like an ankle monitor for him and all this. Like they tried to go all out, and it even came down to like after they finished presenting the evidence, for want of a better term, about Pat King, the defense found more information and tried to reopen things to say like, this is a dude who's illegally in possession of a handgun, according to him. This is a dude who, like, here's a bunch of reasons why he is a danger to be a reoffender and a threat to Canadians. And the judge was like, you know what? You had your chance. You had your chance to present your case. And you didn't bring this up in time. I'm sorry. I can't consider it. But also, no bail for you, bucko. And I'm like, yes. Fuck yeah. It's the same people, right? All of these groups are exactly the same fucking people doing exactly the same fucking shit. And it's grim and gross. It's frustrating. I don't know why the world is the way the world is, but somewhere along the way, we kind of forgot that Nazis are bad. And yeah, I used that word, and it's entirely valid. I mean, right down to both Tamara Lich, whatever, and Pat King claiming indigenous ancestry to defend themselves as like, I'm part indigenous, so I can be as shitty as I want. Nah, dude, you lied. Both of them have no evidence of any kind of indigenous ancestry. So, like, sorry. And it turns out you can still be a hateful bastard, even if you are part indigenous, because you're still part asshole. I watched the debate between Destiny and CTV this morning. I think the debate was last night, but I watched it this morning. And it just continues to underscore the total lack of understanding that a lot of people have about what this is, and who these people are. This is not truckers. The truckers union, which is, a big deal. Or I think there's like 4 truckers unions, and they all were like, fuck this, we're not supporting this motherfucker. The people who were there largely were not truckers. And you know what? Truckers are cool. I think that truckers are important. I would agree that they are essential service that is necessary to keep the economy moving. But like all the essential services, that means that the government doesn't fucking care about them. And to me, the mandates are like the mask mandate the vaccination mandate for crossing the border seems stupid at this point. And I say that based on the fact that, we're dropping all of the provincial mandates. If we had wanted to do this, we should have done it early on, when there was, I think, a bigger threat of someone being, across that border, getting exposed to the virus and bringing it back. I think that threat is a lot less at this point, and I also think that the damage that could be done is a lot less. So I would say that mandate is kind of a stupid idea, personally. But the fact that the mandate wasn't like either get vaccinated or you lose your job. It was get vaccinated and you can cross the border. If you don't get vaccinated, you can still continue to be a trucker all over the fucking country. You just can't leave the country and come back. And if you do, then you have to have 2 weeks of isolation time, which I totally get. That is not a thing that a trucker is going to be able to do. Like an actual trucker driving across the border, getting told you have 2 weeks that you have to isolate. Like, no, ain't happening. So that just means that they go, okay, well, I will only drive my truck across Canada. And you go, oh, but they may not have the choice because of the particulars of the job that they're on. Most trucking companies have routes across Canada. Most trucking companies saw this coming because this was not a fucking surprise and made drastic changes to how they organized their staff so that they would not be negatively impacted by all this. Because facts are facts. They want to keep making money. It's capitalism, baby. Money, money, money. So they saw it coming. They said, okay, well, we need to hire some more people that are vaccinated, and we need to make sure that we have options available for our staff that choose not to get vaccinated. And okay, I was chatting on here after my debate with one of the guys from the debate, the Splonker. And the Splonker was talking about how he had lost his job as a result of not being vaccinated. And the reality of the details is, I think that was a shitty thing to happen to him. He works for a government agency, and the government put through a mandate for their workers as the employer, saying, we demand that all workers are vaccinated. He was working from home. I don't see why that's a thing. I similarly felt like that was an overreach when my employer said that. If we're working from home, tough shit. That said, like, I think everyone should be vaccinated just out of the common good. I'm the punk that picks you up in the pit, not the punk that, knocks you out for getting too close to his girlfriend. Last night, there was a chair that got tipped over, and my bouncer brain was immediately like, that is a problem. It was just on the outskirts of the pit, and I'm like, someone's going to fall, and they're going to get hurt. So I just ran over, picked it up, and away you go. And one of my buddies was like, I totally saw that chair go down, and I was like, oh man, someone's going to fall and get hurt. And then before I could even think to act, you were already fixing it. And I'm like, yeah, I used to be a bouncer. At punk rock shows. My job, which you never really get out of your system, is the idea that you got to be the peacekeeper and the one who's got their eyes open for other people's safety, whether that's in the form of people or chairs toppled or whatever. You just do. You get used to that. That's who I am, and I think it's like, for me, vaccination was never a consideration. And I've said this before. I oppose the idea of vaccine mandates unless we're in a pandemic. It's a pandemic. Bad shit's happening. Sometimes you have to exert a little bit of executive power. That doesn't mean that, I'm a libertarian socialist, and I believe that people should be free and live free lives and not have government overreach and stuff. But I'm also a pragmatist, and I recognize that, like, tough shit. We're in a society, and there are people who are not going to do the thing that needs to get done, and that, this society has placed a premium on the success and thriving of our healthcare. Whether the politicians in place actually defend that or not, wholly different conversation. But to the Canadian citizens, it is important that we have universal health care. And a pandemic directly threatens that. People keep talking about, oh, COVID, the numbers, the 99.99999, like, they're just coming up with bullshit. The fact is, we have reason to be concerned about our hospitalizations. We still have reason to be concerned about our hospitalizations. Looking at Denmark's numbers, and again, Denmark is like 3 weeks or 6 weeks or whatever ahead of us, whatever that magic number is. So we've been using them as the example when it came to, lowering our guard with sanctions. Denmark just hit an all-time high for COVID hospitalizations. So that's a thing. And this is why I say I don't think the mandates are over. I think they are stopped for now. In this debate, CTV kept screaming about Justin Trudeau as a communist and a fascist, but also a communist, and his seizing of power with the Emergencies Act. And, ooh, the Emergencies Act is so evil and stuff. Let me ramble about that for a moment. The Emergencies Act was, I think, very, very sketchy. Just going to put that on the table. I do not like the Emergencies Act. It is not something that he wrote. It isn't something that the current Liberal government wrote. This is something that has been on the books for a long time. And I believe it was essentially a replacement of the previous. Let's do some Googling so that we can talk smart about all this. After I cough, because that's, pure heat. All right, Google. Let's, where's my Google? There we go. Okay, so we're going to go, Canada Emergencies Act. So the news stories will be, we have one. I want to see if there's Wikipedia. It seems weird that I'd be like, let's go to the Wikipedia instead of the government of Canada, but I want to see some of the sort of histories behind it. So Emergencies Act, passed by the Parliament of Canada in 1988. Let's just quickly go Canada government 1988, just so we know who was in power at the time. And apparently I can't type things. So probably pre this election. So this was Brian Mulroney, a conservative, was the prime minister at the time, the guy who brought us GST. And he won. So he was the incumbent and he won the election for the PC party to a second majority government. So the Emergencies Act was passed in Parliament during a majority conservative government. Probably worth understanding. Authorizes the federal government to take extraordinary temporary measures to respond to public welfare emergencies, public order emergencies, the international emergencies, and war emergencies. This law replaces the War Measures Act passed in 1914. It asserts that any government action continues to be subject to the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms and the Bill of Rights. Kind of a big deal. So, the War Measures Act, which I believe the last time it was used was by Trudeau the Senior, Pierre Elliott Trudeau, who, as a child, I learned that the way they named Petro-Canada wasn't about petrochemicals. It was Pierre Elliott Trudeau rips off Canada. Waka waka. Anyways, so the War Measures Act has been around since the World War I times. And this is a replacement passed in 1988, which probably, if I dug into this, I'm fairly certain that what this is doing is basically making the War Measures Act more modern, but essentially the same thing. When Trudeau the Senior enacted the War Measures Act, it was during the FLQ crisis, which was a separatist party in France that was trying to essentially do all the things that Wexit wants, but they were terroristing, and they did some real good terrorisming, And so Trudeau rolled in tanks to Montreal. Not a popular move, at least in Montreal. Definitely not a popular move, but ended the problem. So, under the Emergencies Act, the federal cabinet can declare a national emergency in response to an urgent and critical situation that cannot be dealt with by any existing law and either is beyond the capability of a province to deal with or threatens the sovereignty of Canada. Before declaring a national emergency, the federal cabinet must consult with provincial cabinets. In the case of public welfare or public order emergency, where the effects of the emergency are confined to or occur principally in one province, the Emergencies Act cannot be used if the provincial cabinet does not indicate that the situation is beyond the capacity of the province to deal with. Once an emergency is declared, it is subject to confirmation by the House of Commons and Senate. So here's the thing. Here's how this works. This cannot be cruel Justin Trudeau deciding to wield uncontrollable excess power and just deciding and giving himself superpowers, and we're all just left to deal with it. That's not the way the law is written, and that's not the way that it was used. He had to go to the provinces that were involved, which would be a lot more than just Ontario, but Ontario was certainly I almost said premier, but that's going to sound like premier, was the hotbed of a lot of the attention. But like Coots in Alberta, and there were similar protests like across the fucking country. So it wasn't a single incident where he would need to necessarily have permission from Ottawa, from the Ontario government. But I believe he did consult and stuff. Who knows? I wasn't there. Once an emergency is declared, it's subject to confirmation by the House of Commons and the Senate. So, in other words, he can say that and go, yeah, I've done all my due diligence, checked all the boxes, and we have an emergency, and we need to deal. And he can implement that, but it has to be agreed to after the fact. So the Senate and the House of Commons can actually shut it down. And that's an interesting thing, because the House of Commons is our elected body and the Senate is our fake elected body. And by that I mean they're appointed, they've always been appointed, and somewhere along the line Conservatives were like, we should be able to have elections for Senate. I think it was based on, like, the Senate has always been a shit, just a mess. A lot of prime ministers, after their tour of office is done, will just sort of dump all of the people that they liked from their party into Senate positions, which are appointed and are sort of for life. So you can wind up in a situation. I think actually Trudeau the Senior did this, where he basically like flooded the Senate with liberals, which I think is a shitty thing. And there should be, like, we should probably reform how the Senate is populated, but they have like legitimate, on our last election, which was not terribly long ago, they have a section for voting for your senator, which is hilarious because the government doesn't have to listen. And I don't think ever has. So, that's cool that we spend the money to make a special sheet of paper with all of the names of the people running for Senate, and then people will vote. I personally voted for Chad Thunders from the CJSW, which is a university radio station. He was their program director for a long time, and his whole candidacy was like, this is stupid. This is not an elected position. Fine, elect me to a non-elected position that no one will give me. Anyways, so there was a big kerfuffle about the Emergencies Act and what it does and what it doesn't do, and that Trudeau created this law in some way. No. That this was the first time it's ever been used. Yes, technically, but the War Measures Act was used, and if we look, I'm sure we can find examples of the War Measures Act being used. provided for the declaration of war, invasion, or insurrection, and the types of emergency measures that could be taken. The act was brought into force 3 times in Canadian history during the First World War, Second World War, and the 1970 October Crisis. This is the FLQ thing that I was talking about. Refers to a chain of events that started in October 1970 when members of the Front de Libération de Québec, FLQ, kidnapped the provincial deputy premier Pierre Laporte and British diplomat James Cross from his Montreal residence. These events saw the Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau invoking the War Measures Act for the first time in Canadian history during peacetime. I don't know why conservatives missed this in their arguing about how evil just and when Bush the Jr. went back to Iraq, the lefties were like, "Hey, just trying to make your dad proud, are ya?" They should have been doing the same shit, but they missed the boat. And now if they do it, it's all because of me. Fuck them. I gave them the idea. Fuck them all hard in their nostrils. The Premier of Quebec, Robert Bourassa, and the Mayor of Montreal, Jean Drapeau, supported Trudeau's invocation of the War Measures Act, which limited civil liberties and granted the police far-reaching powers, allowing them to arrest and detain 497 people. The government of Quebec also requested military aid to support the civil authorities, with Canadian forces being deployed throughout Quebec. Although negotiations led to Cross's release, Laporte was murdered by the kidnappers. The crisis affected the province of Quebec, Canada, especially the metropolitan area of Montreal, and ended on December 28th. At the time, opinion polls in Quebec and throughout Canada showed widespread support for the usage of the War Measures Act. The response was criticized by prominent politicians such as René Lévesque and Tommy Douglas. After the crisis, movements that pushed for electoral votes as a means to attain autonomy and independence grew stronger. At the time, support also grew for the sovereignist political party known as Parti Québécois, which formed the provincial government in 1976. I believe Parti Québécois eventually became the Bloc Québécois, which is the French separatist party that exists in Canada. So, like a Frexit, I don't know. But they have been, in fact, they almost made up the official opposition in Parliament one election. I think it was the Liberals had won and had a wild majority, and the Bloc was, I think, like 2 seats away from being the official opposition, which is mind-blowing that a single region party could ever have that many votes. But that's the way the population of Canada works, and certainly the way gerrymandering has worked, so that Quebec and Ontario have the lion's share of political power, largely because they have the lion's share of people, which makes sense, but frustrates the hell out of us in the West, who go like, yeah, but we got all this space, and we should have more representation. And I agree, but I think that representation should come from the fact that the parties should be like, hey, let's pay attention to the needs of the whole goddamn country, and not just, Ontario and Quebec and maybe the Maritimes. Who am I kidding? They don't care about the Maritimes. Anyways, back to it. So the War Measures Act got replaced by the Emergencies Act. So yes, it is the first time the Emergencies Act has ever been used. However, it is also the first time we've had something of that potential level of threat. Now, people will argue with me about that. They'll be like, yeah, this was a peaceful, they had bouncy castles. Yeah, they had bouncy castles so that they could justify having children, so that they could justify having human shields. That's a bad look. It's a real fucking bad look. The key in my mind is the Emergencies Act has limits built in. And CTV was like, "Rawr, Justin Trudeau will never give up his power." Well, I wonder what happened with that. Let's just see if there's any reference to... oh, look, there's a whole section on the convoy protest. In the weekend before the invocation of the Emergencies Act, Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland, who also serves as the finance minister, met with the CEOs of the largest Canadian banks to discuss how they could help resolve the situation. On February 14th, during the Canadian convoy protest, the Emergencies Act was invoked for the first time in Canadian history by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government, declaring a public order emergency. Under the emergency measures regulations enacted after the declaration of emergency, participation in public assemblies that could result in a breach of peace by disrupting the movements of goods and people, interfering with the operation of critical infrastructure, or by supporting violence was prohibited. The critical infrastructure one is a huge red flag for me because they talk about pipelines as critical infrastructure, which means that this legislation does threaten land protectors. I hope it's not used to do so because, we don't want to make this an easy thing to use, and we don't want to make this a normal thing for governments to use. But we also have to have something that we can do. It's an important distinction when land protesters are protesting. For example, the Wet-Sweden protesting the Coastal GasLink pipeline that is going through their land. The RCMP and the local police and the government in general are pretty okay with just cracking skulls. That's like what they do. They go in, they're like, "Hey guys, let's talk about this," and the people go, "Well, yeah, we don't want this pipeline," and they go, "Well, that's too bad," and they go, "Well, we're not leaving," and they go, "Oh, okay," because that's how shit goes. Kind of a terrible thing. They have no problem stomping all over anytime it is a non-white movement. But the minute that it's a white movement, like the convoy, all of a sudden, and you know what, you can point to the fact that there were sick people, there were, people of every ethnicity on Earth that went to this convoy, I'm sure. It was a white people's movement. They had lots of people with them who were not white, but it was a white people's movement. Just facts. So when the white people do stuff, all of a sudden the government has to be real careful because that's who provides them the power of governing. You can claim in a democracy that it is all people who are equal, but I think that's a little bit of bullshit, and I think we can all just fucking agree on that. So they have to do things like this Emergencies Act or the War Measures Act or whatever, because otherwise, if you send in the RCMP and just start clubbing heads, liberals are going to be like, "This is wrong. This is wrong. These people have the right to protest." Now, when indigenous people do it to prevent a gas pipeline from getting built in their environment, then it's, "Well, this is wrong. They need to get out of the way." That's a thing. But yeah, this is the world we live in, and I'm not gonna be able to change it. So at least not in this live stream. All right. Travel to and within places where these rallies were occurring was restricted, and foreign nationals were barred from coming to Canada to attend them. That was a key one because they were trying to drum up support from various right-wing groups in the States, which could have been really bad. The regulations also specifically outlawed the bringing of children under the age of 18 to these assemblies. The fact they had to say that is weird, right? Additionally, the use, provision, collection, and solicitation of property and funds to support the prohibited assemblies or the people participating in them was banned. This is the thing that everyone seems to be sort of primarily focused on, is the freezing of bank accounts. And yeah, I get, you hear the story of like, oh, some little granny who, threw $20 to the convoy and doesn't, she's not a white nationalist. She just saw people fighting for freedom and, yeah, here's $20. Like, I feel like that is probably not the end of the world and probably shouldn't have resulted in Granny's bank account getting frozen. But Pat King, yeah. Tamaralitz, yeah. They were fundraising millions of dollars from like all over the world. That's creepy. The regulations further empower the federal government to protect critical infrastructure. Parliament Hill and the Parliamentary Precinct, official government residences and buildings, war monuments, and any other places that may be designated by the Minister of Public Safety. The federal government was also given the authority to compel the towing and removal of vehicles, structures, and objects used in blockades. Violations of the regulation is punishable by up to 5 years imprisonment and or a fine up to $5,000. I am Canadian. I see you have returned. Pat King loves the granny collateral damage, allows him to hide. Coward. Yeah, exactly. It's not that Pat King is like actually worried about some poor old granny, Pat King just, wants to be able to go, see, this is who they're targeting, not the guy that gave us, $350,000. It's grandmas. And it's a clever thing. It's a super fucking clever thing. Like the minute that they started fundraising, I was unsurprised they were fundraising. I mean, this is just what they do. And then I found out that the numbers, like when they hit $1 million, I was like, holy shit, what is happening? When they did United We Roll, they got like nothing. And it was a huge clusterfuck from a financial perspective. How the fuck are they fundraising? And then it hit like $7 million. And I was like, what? This makes no goddamn sense. And then you start to realize that this is, being funded internationally, and that there are organizations, businesses, and whatnot that are supporting this. And they know what they're doing. Segue, when did Brett Wilson become a psychotic right-wing fascist prick? Surprising, he always was. I did not know this, but I saw when he was on Dragon's Den, he always seemed like the super cool guy who was like, "Hey guys, like I'll totally give you money to, let's build some new products and services." And I thought he was cool. And then I saw like tweets of his, and yeah, he has always been a fucking deeply weird motherfucker. And yeah, he's problematic. I fucking hate that asshole almost as much as Kenny. BW is sounding more like Pat King and Tamara Litch Daly. I had no idea. I need to be much more aware. Lesson here. I don't think that's not a lesson thing, right? I mean, like you, I would imagine Brett Wilson just wasn't on your radar, right? When he's not on Dragon's Den, unless you guys are going golfing, like how the fuck would you know? And loads of people are doing the same psychotic right-wing fascist shit. Gwen Morgan. But like, it's a thing. And when we don't see it, how can we know better, right? Yeah, not on your radar. Yeah, exactly. And they're usually so good at, like Preston Manning always seemed like this nerdy little kid with a heart of gold who was gonna like, reform, I love that word. And then fucking like you actually see his politics and you're like, dude, you are an evil man. Gwen Morgan, Conrad Black. Yeah. Conrad Black once, if I understand the story correctly, a friend of mine's mom was at some party in Toronto, and Conrad Black was there, and she walked up all left-leaning young woman at the time and was like, you're that terrible man that owns all the newspapers. And he's like, you're that whore that everyone's banged. And yeah, Conrad Black is shit. Yeah, Preston Manning is a fucking motherfucker. I totally agree with that. And a great example of the optics of the right and how they can seem so banal. Like Preston just seemed like a guy who wanted the world to be a fairer place, and then you dig in, and you're like, ooh. And when he got replaced with Stockwell Day, like that was now we want a nice Chad leader, and that didn't go well for them. All of those people are just garbage. If it's cameras on, it must be true. Sigh. Yeah, or if it's on camera, it must be true. Yeah, that's the world now. So yeah, this protection of critical infrastructure really weirds me out. I 100% get it. There are things that, whether we like it or not, like pipelines, that are critical to the functioning of the country. Those border crossings are critical to the functioning of the company and the economic stability of the country. 100% get that. But it's critical infrastructure is so nebulous that I get unnerved, right? When I first started encountering the words critical infrastructure, I was like, related to the power grid. I used to work for an agency that was involved with the power grid. And I was like, yeah, electricity is critical infrastructure. If you take out our electrical system, you are, negatively, potentially killing people, but definitely negatively impacting people all over the place. But there's no finite name of these things are critical. So like you could say, well, sewers are critical. You have to have sewers. Can't have a protest near a sewer. Yeah, it's defined critical. It's super nasty. And the compelling of towing and removal of vehicles was something I've heard people talk about. I don't know if it's actually valid. What I'd heard, and that was that they were forcing towing companies to tow rigs, and if they didn't, they were facing fines and stuff. And that even those who, the towing companies who were part of the movement were forced to work again. Like, I don't know how valid that is, but I don't like the compel is another one of those words that, probably needs a little bit more clarity. Under the Emergency Measures Order, also enacted pursuant to the Declaration of Emergency, crowdfunding platforms and their payment processors were required to register with the Financial Transactions and Report Analysis Center of Canada, FINTRAC, and report large and suspicious transactions. Cryptocurrencies are also included in the expanded financial regulations. Banks were ordered to freeze personal and corporate bank accounts suspected of being used by people violating the regulations and are protected from civil liberty in enforcing the order. Civil liability. Insurance coverage for trucks being used in blockades will be suspended. Furthermore, financial institutions had to determine on a continuing basis whether any persons violating the regulations were using the services and were required to properly report findings to the RCMP or CSIS, our intelligence agency. I don't believe for a second towing companies were afraid to tow nor forced. Yeah, I feel like towing companies, there may very well have been companies that were like, no, these are our brothers and we don't want to tow them. And I just find it really hard to imagine that the government would have been like, no, you will tow that motherfucker and you will do it now. That just doesn't seem real. But again, I don't know the particulars. I've just heard that spouted and I don't really put any stock in it. So the financial thing, there's real reason to be concerned about the financing here. And it's not just because, the more money that comes in, the longer this can last. Because eventually that will just no longer be true, right? If we had not done anything, eventually people are going to stop donating millions of dollars. And as much as millions of dollars sounds like a fuck ton of money, it ain't. And it will run dry. And eventually there'll come a point where that protest is just like two guys in a Ram or a fucking F-150 going, shit. Yeah, pillow guy money. That pillow guy, holy shit, my pillow. Let me tell you about what I'm going to do for them. I'm going to bring them pillows. Oh, fuck yeah. That'll solve everything. But yeah, the potential for, there's a lot of potential for underhanded shit. People got angry when GoFundMe shut them down, but it was because of violations of terms of service. And terms of service for GoFundMe is like, if you're making donations, and I don't know if there's a limit to this or whatever, but you have to specify who you are, especially if there's a potential political implication of that donation. You have to specify who you are, first name, last name. And a legal first name is not Justin Trudeau's whore of a wife, because that was the kinds of people that were donating $13,000, $15,000. And I'm fairly certain she wasn't doing that. Nor is she a whore. She's a fucking human being. And let's treat her like that. I love his Jesus pillows for the children. Yeah, those I want to get them just for, like throw out at a crowd in a mosh pit or something and just have them beat the shit out of each other with my pillows. Fuck Trudeau is not a compelling political platform unless it is. And you know what? Like, this is the thing that I feel like people are missing out on is fuck Trudeau is stupid because it doesn't actually involve any change. Unless you are actively saying fuck Trudeau, I demand that either he behave in this fashion or that he, leave his office or whatever. It's just fucking let's go Brandon. Like, okay, fuck Trudeau. Who cares? This whole thing was done for reasons, and it's not because of bouncy councils. That argument drives me nuts. The announcement had varied reactions. Several provincial premiers expressed concerns, including the premiers of Alberta, my old Jason Kenney, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Quebec. Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario, near the center of the protest, expressed support for the measure. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh supported the measure, but said that its invocation was proof of failure of leadership. Bing, bing, bing. The Canadian Civil Liberties Association criticized the invocation of the act, saying that the high and clear threshold for invocation, that the situation cannot be resolved through the regular application of existing laws had not been met, and that normalization of emergency legislation would erode democracy and civil liberties. And on this, I agree. We were unable to stop this, not because the system failed. We were unable to stop this because the cops weren't doing their job. End of fucking story. You can argue that all you like, but you know what's illegal? Honking your horn all night. That's actually not okay. We have noise ordinances that were not being followed. We have all kinds of measures that were not being met, and it was because of the fact that these are white people who have a voice. And if you had gone in and cracked skulls, you would have triggered riots by liberals. If you had said, you know what, you can't honk your horn, they'd have gone, well, yeah, I can. These were people who were there to push their agenda and to push and push and push and push and push. And eventually get a reaction, because the reaction is more important. You know, you're in junior high and there's a guy who's picking on you and he just keeps you calling you, the F slur, and you're like, God, that guy just drives me nuts. And then eventually you snap and you punch him. That was what he was looking for all along. This is the trucker protest in like Technicolor. Rhombus bouncy castles. Freedom for all bouncy castles. Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I support bouncy castles. Not so big on using your children as human shields, but I do support bouncy castles, 100%. It's a rhombus take, right? I'm not a smegma male, I'm a rhombus. Hey, something just happened. What just happened here? Oh, Lulu from Calab is now following, Lou from Calab, who I believe I know. And I see in the chat, I have two friends in Ontario who have received tickets for honking their horn at someone who wasn't pulling forward at a green light. You're telling me that blaring horns on trucks all night isn't illegal? Way to go, cops. Yeah, exactly, right? The bar that I used to work at, the previous incarnation, I don't think I ever officially worked at the third distillery, but the cops were there every fucking night with an app on their phone to detect the decibel levels to make sure that we were not in violation of the 80 decibels outside. And that was like a regular thing. That didn't happen. No one was like, they brought a fucking, like a cruise ship horn that they hooked up. Like this is easily gonna go over any existing noise ordinances. And like, didn't do nothing. The cops at Coots at the end of the big standoff were hugging and singing "O Canada" with the protesters. Like that's fucking gross. That's fucking gross. Interestingly, if I'm not mistaken, Lou from Calab and I am Canadian actually know each other too. But that's if this was homeless people, fentanyl protesters, indigenous protesters, environmental protesters, the RCMP would have boot fucked them on day one. Yep. But this they had to treat very gingerly, because this was not about people who they can just be like, well, yeah, they're wrong. They had to, these are white people, and you have to be like, guys, let's talk. And not only that, but like, I don't know if you know this, but cops are class traitors. That is their job. They are there to protect the status quo. And what is more status quo than saying, get rid of things that are in the way of my freedoms, right? Maybe day two, after all, the cops want their Saturdays too. Yes. That was the best part of that, was that meme that went out from whoever, somebody made I think it was a Twitter post, and it was like, to all of the people who are coming to Ontario, we're still under like a strict lockdown. So there will be no restaurants, there will be no hotels, there will be no bathrooms, there will be no access to any of these services. Like, you're coming. This is what you're going to get greeted by. Freedom's actually my rights. It's my right to be an asshole. And you know what? It is your right to be an asshole. It's my right to be an asshole. And I think that that's important. Or more accurately, the things that I do that make me an asshole are usually things that I'm doing that are protected by my Charter of Rights and Freedom's rights. That said, honking your horn all night, that is not free expression. That is violating, like, we have limitations on these things for a reason. And the class trader cops didn't have any interest in enforcing these things. It's the same as, like, when we had our hogs marching in the anti-masker marches that we had at the start of COVID. We had that first few weeks where everybody, like, the only time you left your house was to, like, sing happy birthday to the frontline healthcare workers and shit. And the rest of the time you just, like, made sourdough and everything was good. And then people hit that point where their hair got that 1 inch too long and all of a sudden the world was madness. And they had to fight and they had to scream and they had to argue. The anti-masker demonstrations that were happening were clearly a violation of the laws that we were operating under at that time. And yet, cops did nothing. Why? Because cops agree. And the cops get to choose what they do with the laws that they're expected to enforce, because they don't enforce them equally. And that is the whole problem. That's why the Emergency Measures Act had to be considered, that and the whole honky thing. When that soup kitchen was abused, it should have triggered a huge response. Still pissed at the pigs for not jumping on that. Yeah. The even before when they first showed up at the soup kitchen, the soup kitchen was like, okay, we're just gonna guess we're gonna do things, give you some food, but, like, we can't do this all the time. And then, like, later that day, they're beating up a homeless guy that bothered them, and then when a security guard stopped them, they met that security guard with the racist words. So that was cool. Anyways, Lou from Cal AB, I understand. I'm happy to have you here. I hope you enjoy. Feel free to chat away. I'm a small streaming Andy, but it's always fun conversation, especially when I am Canadians around to keep my horrible socialism from going too far. So we'll continue on here. So I agree with the Canadian Civil Liberties Association criticizing the invocation of the act, because they could have dealt with this through existing laws. They just didn't. And that became very clearly something that was not going to happen. On February 18th, it filed for judicial review of decision of the government's decision. Constitution Foundation. Did I skip? Yeah, I did. Sorry. Decision to enact the Emergencies Act, claiming the invocation was unjustified and unconstitutional. The Canadian Consultation Foundation announced intent to sue on similar grounds. On February 19th, Alberta Premier Jason Kenney also said that the province would file a court challenge to the federal government's use of the act. A few days later, Saskatchewan Premier Scott Mott said the province was also considering a court challenge. On February 20th, Edward Snowden compared the freezing of bank accounts to similar actions by the Chinese and Russian governments, and commended the Canadian Civil Liberties Canadian Civil Liberties Association for its challenge to the invocation of the act. And I don't disagree. I actually don't have a lot of faith in any of those groups. I love Snowden, but that doesn't mean he's an expert on our situations. But I think that it is important to challenge this act. Anytime it is implemented, it should be challenged and aggressively challenged for, are we doing the right thing? I have no problem with that whatsoever. Opinion polling, even if I'm in support of the act being used in a particular situation, I still think that, there's a lot of power here, and it should be subject to people questioning it. Abso-fucking-lutely. One of the first Saturdays that I'm not running around the city. Totally agreed with Jagmeet, but was still disappointed that he voted to support. Yeah, I feel conflicted on that. Like I'm legitimately conflicted on the use of this because the reality is, whether we like it or not, it wasn't the democracy failing. It wasn't the leadership failing. It was the actual people on the streets, the police officers that failed us, and we had to do something, and we couldn't just react as we would if they were indigenous. We actually had to dot our T's and cross our I's, because white nationalists are deserving special treatment. Why did Harper create the Emergencies Act in the first place? Yeah, it wasn't Harper that created it. This is important. This actually came in the tenure of Mulrooney. And so again, a conservative leader. But the act was created to replace the fuck was it called? It's at the top of the page here. The War Measures Act. And probably made a lot of sense to do the replacement with a more modern version, because the War Measures Act was 1914 and obviously had a very specific use in mind, and was only ever enacted 3 times. It was World War I, World War II, FLQ crisis. So I don't feel like this trucker convoy is of the level of the FLQ crisis, but I do believe that it could have been. Could have been isn't really a good answer for enacting this legislation, because anything could spiral out of control. But realistically, the cops weren't doing it. The people were frustrated. Like Ontarians wanted this to be done. The cops weren't fucking there. So yeah, Coots could have been murdered RCMP, national, not local. Yeah, and it was national, and it was, the longer that Coots went on, it would have spurred more similar border blockades across the country. But yeah, this was a national problem and not a regional problem. So that is 100% valid. And we talk about it like it was Ottawa because that was where the cameras were, but Coots was fucked. Coots was fucked. There were people with like AR-15s and shit and body armor, just protesting because that's how you protest. Oh no, Jim, they were just farmers, and farmers always farm their fields in body armor with white nationalist patches on it. That's a normal thing. All right. Anyways. Opinion polling conducted by Maru Public Opinion showed that 66% of Canadians supported the use of the Act. Support was highest in BC, Quebec, and Atlantic Canada, with 75%, 72%, and 72% of the populations in those regions supporting the invocation respectively, and with a majority in every province backing the use of the Act. So when people talk about this, they always say that like this was some totally unsupported, blah, blah. No, this was exactly supported. In accordance with the requirements of the Emergencies Act, the government introduced a motion for the confirmation of the declaration of emergency on February 17th, and debate was planned to continue through the weekend, with a vote scheduled to occur on February 21st. Though interrupted by police operations against the protesters on February 18th, debate otherwise proceeded as planned, and the House voted to confirm use of the Act, 185 to 151. So that was close, not like super close, but there was dissent on the decision, with the Liberals and NDP in support and the Conservatives in bloc voting against the motion. Immediately after, interim Conservative leader Candice Bergen, aka Murphy Brownshirt, who is this person, who is a garbage sack of evil, filed a motion to revoke the declaration of emergency under Section 59, which would have been debated next week. Debate in the Senate began on February 22nd, with members being required to take an oath of secrecy. A vote was expected as early as that evening, but debate proved more contentious than anticipated, with several senators challenging the government to disclose the basis for invoking and continuing the state of emergency, even as blockades and protesters had been cleared. Interestingly, no one seems to go the other way on this one and go like, well, why were they so freaked out about mandates and demanding mandates been dropped where mandates were being dropped? But whatever. Prime Minister Trudeau announced that the federal government would be revoking the emergency declaration. That was February 23rd. Debate in the Senate was halted after the announcement. Later that day, the Governor General signed a proclamation revoking it. Despite its revocation, the Canadian Civil Liberties Association and the province of Alberta have said they will proceed with challenges to the use of the act. So that's some history about the Emergencies Act and where it came from and how it had its ties with the FLQ crisis and all kinds of stuff like that. Another segue, perhaps Putin will finally spur investment in the Canadian oil patch. Oh man, the number of fucking hog conservative people that are like, this is a great time for Alberta oil. Like, seriously, this is not about oil. This is gross. But yes, I do agree. Invariably, we will wind up with some additional attention being paid to Alberta oil and some increased oil prices. Oil prices are a really awkward thing for me. Like, I'm 100% on board with the idea of getting the fuck off oil. Oil bad. But we're not there. We have to get off oil. We have to, I would like to see them start heavily using monies that they make from oil, potentially even more monies than they make from oil as a government, to fund programs to specifically, invest in alternative energies. And do that like a hefty thing so that we're actually moving on that, because A, oil will disappear, and B, if it doesn't, we will. So that's a bad thing. Yeah, fund, for example, tech industry, alternative energy. I always bring up lubes and greases because that's something that often we don't talk about when we're talking about alternative energy. I would say nuclear power. I would say wind power, despite the fact that people don't like it as much. Some of the solar power stuff is really interesting. I'm not talking about solar fields because I think those are terrible. But there was a company in the States that was creating a paint that you could paint your house with, that basically would act as a solar cell. So you're not introducing like a giant swath of solar cells. You're just saying, yeah, we're going to paint these houses and they will, receive some energy from the sun. The paint was not, like a high percentage of effectiveness, but that's a technology thing. That's something that we can work on and fix. My YYC neighbor was in commercial building solar for the last 15 years. He was doing very well without any help from the PCs or UCP, and oddly only helped by Notley crew. Yeah, I worked for the people that run the grid, the electrical grid, when Notley was in power. And in fact, the reason I left that company was I was like, I was beloved and I was a very important position for what I do. And then the UCP won, and I was like, and I'm fucking out because there's layoffs are coming. Notley had gone to great lengths to support the idea of diversifying our energy spectrum so that we were less on oil and gas and coal and more on alternative energies. And was also doing a lot of other creative things, some of which I didn't really understand. Like there was a auction system that they were working on for, I can't even capacity market, and I had it explained to me several times, and I went, because I don't fucking understand what the hell I'm talking about. But those were policies that, like, in the election, Jason Kenney was like, we hate that. We want to go back to oil. Oil's good. And as soon as he won that election, I literally, like, within a couple of days, I was job hunting, and the next thing I know, I had another gig, and I was like, and I'm out. And a bunch of people wound up getting laid off, and contractors. I'm a contractor, and I was the only contractor who had my particular job title. All the other ones were employees, and a lot of them working on projects that were related to these things. And so when you're an employee and you have like an employee and a contractor and you have to let go of somebody, you let go of the contractor because you have a certain amount of loyalty to your employee. So I saw the writing on the wall and was like, peace. And it was good. Exactly what I first saw happened. But yeah, I would love to see us get off of oil and gas. But the reality is, and if I'm not mistaken, the people that are active in my chat all are aware of this very simple fact. Here in Alberta, high oil prices are good. High oil prices mean that we are generating revenue. And usually that is where innovation comes from, because we have money to divert to things like additional projects for like I think SAGD largely came out of that. I remember hearing years and years ago, I was working for on a contract for Shell, and they were talking about this thing that they had called the all sands, which was an oil sand thing. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. Like, it's so interesting that you guys are doing, like, there's this new way of getting oil out. And they were like, yeah, the thing is, oil prices have to go up to $50 a barrel before we're even going to be able to consider this as a viable thing. This is an investment in the future. That technology came about because of, extra revenue that they knew this was a loss leader, but that eventually would do well. Alberta is trending, not because of the people, because of the asshole premier. Yeah, man, the fucking budget coming out and the whiny little prick going after the Emergencies Act and stuff. Like, again, I'm fine with him challenging the Emergencies Act. I think him doing it is just political theater. He is so scared of losing a single conservative vote. That he literally, like, if the truckers tomorrow were to say, you have to end Judaism, he'd be like, we're doing that. His leadership review is coming in a month, yeah. And that gives me some fear, because I don't think he's going to survive his leadership review, and I'm very concerned about what might come next. I think the election is next year, isn't it? They haven't officially called it, but let me just check. Next Alberta election. So the last election on or before May 29th, 2023. So we have potentially up to a year, but they can make it anytime. Fracturing the party into many bits, I would super be okay with. I know it's a weird take. I hate big tent parties. And I especially hate big tent conservative parties, because they tend to make some of the worst policies with the intent of fucking over libertarian values, and instead going with, like, good God fear and Christian values. Progressives, and if you can stomach the word, and the base need to split. I would love to see more parties, and that I said, like, it's a bizarre thing, because the lead up to World War II, in like every single country that wound up fascist, was ineffective government as a result of coalition governments. By there were just not enough votes to the number of parties, and it's got a real downside. But big tents don't work. Big tents are foolish, and what we're seeing right now with the NDP and the Liberals federally is a good example of that, where the Liberals are the leaders, but they have none of the power. Jagmeet Singh has the power. Christians, fuck me, can't stand the right wing fucks that are God fearing, and that's the thing. Like, I am not a Christian. But I don't have any problems with people being Christian. I have problems with people mandating based on Christian ethics and Christian philosophy. That's really I'm not a fan of that at all. And the reason for that is simple, and that is things like abortion. Abortion is not in the Bible, but the story of Onan is, and therefore you can extrapolate from it that abortion is a crime against God. But in fact, in my opinion, abortion is a normal piece of health care that should be available to people. And every decent modern society understands this and recognizes the value of women having control over their bodies. I get that some people don't agree with that 100%. But that's why we push these lines, is because we're kowtowing to supremely religious right-wing figures. And then the libertarians on the right don't get their voices heard because they're like, well, the government shouldn't be interceding. And they're like, yeah, but if we listen to you, then we lose these ones. This is the big tent problem. Or rather, God-fear mongering assholes. Freedom of choice over my body, Jim. Unless it's a pregnancy, then fuck you. No vax. My body, my choice. Unless pregnant. And the irony of so many of the anti-vaxxers was the use of that line. Yeah. That literally, the minute that I first read them say my body, my choice, I fucking like blew up. I was like, are you shitting me? Oh my fucking God. No. Bad. It was deeply fucking annoying. All right, I need to both pee and take a quick pause. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on some more of that cheesy muzak that I have written. And then I will be back in just a couple of minutes and we'll continue on and we can continue with this chat. We can talk more about whatever. Feel free to suggest. And if we don't have anything, then I'll do my usual weekly humiliations, which involves me terribly singing karaoke songs. This week you have a delightful collection of karaoke songs. There will be, I can't remember what I did. I know Losing My Religion by REM was one of them. And hang on, let me get back to the... That's Losing My Religion right there. I'm going to stop this. Okay, so we had... view full playlist. Losing My Religion by REM, Painful Reminder by SNFU, and Alternative Ulster by Stiff Little Fingers. That is a song probably no one that's currently in my chat is aware of. But essentially, it's about life in Ulster and how frustrating it is, and how they need to take over their streets from the people who are dominating them. And I just thought that was very like, this will be Ukraine in a little while, so that's why I felt it. Oh, Lulu from Cal AB, you take care, my friend, and thank you for popping in. Yeah, I'd like to rhombus more. We can definitely rhombus a bunch more, and talk about how rhombuses are cool. All right, I am gonna push play on the music and then go for the pee and the outside time. face. Yeah. Kill the music. All right. Well, that was a good little break. I hope you enjoyed some glorious, glorious music. I love my weird life. So what do we want to talk about? Tansy, Sugar, how are you, my dear? I hope you're doing well. We've had a good stream so far. We talked. We dug into the Emergencies Act and figured out that it's not new. Although I already knew that. And we talked about Pat King not getting bail. And I did before anyone was really watching. I did my super awesome celebrity cringe moment. I sang a song that I learned when I was in mixed chorus in high school, which I largely have forgotten, and the middle section is very clear on that. But it's called "Song for a Russian Child." So I was like, if I could speak to Vladimir Putin, I just want to sing this song, and teach him to love again, because that's a thing that will definitely work and will end all of the problems in the world. Yeah, fuck that guy. Fuck all those guys. And we talked about, what else? We talked about the whole Ukraine-Russia thing, of which I am not an expert, but I feel pretty confident in saying Ukraine good, Russia bad in this one, and that's just that. And it's not an act of American imperialism to want to increase the size of NATO. It is an act of defense. And people keep going like, yeah, this is America's fault for like trying to get Ukraine into NATO. No, Ukraine wanted to be in NATO because of exactly what's happening right fucking now. So like, I don't know. That doesn't feel like evil. And my hope is that none of these sides are being imperialist. They are. The Russians are definitely being imperialist in this, but I can't see them having a sustained invasion. I just don't think their economy can do that. I think that they're coming in, they're flexing Putin's dick, and it's just, the longer this goes on, the more he's going to look like a fucking titmouse. Hopefully. I want him. The only thing that I really want to happen out of this is I want that somehow in all of the kerfuffle, I want the Donald Trump pee-pee tape to get destroyed. I used to say I wanted it to be released, but the idea of seeing streams of urine colored orange by the face paint that buffoon wears, just actually turns my stomach. I've seen way too much already. Yeah, exactly. I don't want the pee-pee tape. I'm gonna switch beverages. Drinking cold coffee is nowhere near as nice as drinking warm beer, although they're probably exactly the same temperature. Interesting, but I got a beer on the go. So yeah, the big thing to keep in mind, folks, is that the fact that the Hogs have left Ottawa, which isn't entirely accurate, but that state of emergency has ended, does not mean that we're hearing the last of them. They're fucking honking their horns in every single city. And they're being, I think today they're supposed to be here in my hometown doing, When COVID hit, I was like, I can drink anytime. I can drink all day. The world doesn't make sense anymore. And things have not improved. When right-wing chuds are driving through my city honking horns and shit, and I'm like, you know what? I think I can drink a beer. I can fucking do it. It's a fun, fucked world that we live in, and I have given up trying to understand a goddamn thing about it. Oh, that's some good lungs. I was out at a gig last night, smoked way too many cigarettes, and it shows. It shows. It looks like I got, yeah. What else did I have jotted down as things I would talk about? Let's just see. Do we want to look at this progress report released in an article called Jody Gondek is Not Your Friend? Do we want to look at that? Because I'm personally curious. I haven't read it yet. I kind of quickly skimmed the first little bit just to make sure it wasn't like some super right wing, like, let me tell you about brown people. That does not seem to be the case. I got shit on by an old friend this week for Drew Farrell is running as an NDP, and I understand there's a bunch of like backdoor shenanigans that happened as a result of that. I posted that, like, hey, before I knew about any of the shenanigans, I was like, hey, Drew Farrell is actually a shit lib. She ran, like, largely helped these citizens of Eau Claire run the third distillery out of the neighborhood because they didn't like the criminal element that were going to gigs, meaning people like me. And it's very NIMBY, very like, not in my backyard. So I don't have a lot of love there. And yeah, someone was like, well, it's only because she's a woman. And I was like, no, it's because she like actively and aggressively targeted a business that friends of mine ran that didn't fit with what she wanted in her neighborhood and what they wanted in their neighborhood. So no, like, I'm not going to support her. And eventually he was kind enough to explain that I am not a misogynist. So that was nice. Yeah, so let's take a look. Let's read this article about our good friend. Where's my thing? Okay, and I need to copy a link here. Our good friend, who is not our friend, Jody Gondek. Okay, paste and cut over so y'all can see what I see. What the fuck, does your friend not know this? I don't understand where that was all coming from. My friend worked with, and I think when he was a student, he worked with with Drew Farrell on a bunch of stuff and found her to be really awesome, which, cool. I'm not gonna be like, no, you didn't, but does not change the fact that treated that venue like a threat to the community. And there's a huge lag in the chat. I don't know why, but I'm definitely, we're all victims of the Twitch. So, Jody Gondek has shattered the glass ceiling of Calgary's mayor's office, but while the media celebrates her as a feminist icon, her first 2 months in office show a politician far more concerned with media hits than material conditions. Refinery 29, Curiosity, and the CBC laud her for being the first woman to hold the office, but Gondek serves developers, not women. Articles abound celebrating Gondek as a symbol, giving other women, especially women of color, something to aspire to. But when it comes to enacting policies that improve the lives of women and people of color, Gondek is more talk than action. I called that during the conversations that I had leading up to the election. I remember reading her platform and just being like, there is not a lot here. And then when Taylor had her on for a conversation and the topic of defund the police came up, her evasive, really cowardly answer just did not sit well, and nothing I saw since then made me think any better. A self-proclaimed centrist, she joins a long list of female political leaders celebrated for their studious cooperative nature and lack of coherent ideology or real commitment to fighting climate change, poverty, or gender-based violence. Her commitment is to purposefully vague and empty notion of progress, whatever that is. Implicit in the celebration of Gondek's win is a belief that the election of women of color will translate to policies that improve the lives of marginalized people. Totally called that, and I said we can hope. Yep, and you know what? I still hold out hope, right? I just don't know. I don't know if it's going to happen. For nonprofits to mentorship programs to t-shirt makers, a women in politics industrial complex is growing. Regardless of a woman's politics or role, she's celebrated as a girl boss, lifting her up her fellow women. Take a look at how the media cheers when a woman is nominated to head the NSA. The overarching premise of this project is that all women in politics contribute to the betterment of women and society. Clothing companies like Madame Premier promote this type of empty, nonpartisan rhetoric above all else. It's a PR front for women in politics. Any women in politics, no matter... Okay, so I don't need to read that. I don't disagree, but that feels like, yeah, other people are shilling for, the girl boss motif. Okay. This is where I just saw these words. I felt that our city needed a brand ambassador, Gondek told Refinery 29. Not new policies, but a new brand. Gondek uses the language of investment, tech, and corporate communications to build an image of progress. Her background in suburban development is also concerned with PR, rebranding the suburbs to counteract the bad reputation they've received over the past 50 years. This all dovetails with her personal branding perfectly. The Silicon Valley language of efficiencies and disruption masquerade developer interests as progress. Everything is about getting the branding right. And that is my biggest fear, is a progressive veneer with nothing behind it except more of the same shit. Gondek's allegiance to suburban developers goes back to her time as a city councillor. During her time representing Ward 3, she voted to approve 14 new communities on the edge of town, exactly what the development community wanted. According to a former City of Calgary police staffer, Gondek was one of the worst cheerleaders for the development industry, bar none. This urban sprawl that Gondek was such a champion of drove up property taxes and will cost even more down the line when it comes to climate change. I've been saying this shit for a long time, that what we need to be doing is a radically different approach to development in this city. On the day the new council was sworn in, Gondek refused to swear in Councillor Chu, who's accused of sexually assaulting a minor in 1997. Fuck Sean Chu. Sean Chu needs to resign. Chu was instead sworn in by Associate Chief Justice John D. Rook and continues to represent Calgarians on council. While Gondek has no procedural power to remove him from office, she hasn't done much to force his resignation either. I would also say that she hasn't done much to highlight this and to talk about how inappropriate this is. We do need more representation. People need to get accustomed to seeing women of color in these positions. If they get used to it, maybe they'll start voting for us more often. Absolutely agree, and I have zero problem with women of color running and being elected and stuff. I encourage it because I do think diversity of opinions, especially at the leadership level, is very important. But I just think that, and I said at the time, I don't feel like Gondek is the one who's gonna, she's breaking a glass ceiling, but she's not breaking a glass ceiling. She's very much an establishment choice that looks more progressive than it is. So yeah, 100%. I want to see. I wanted Marilyn North Pagan. Is it Marilyn? I wanted her to be my alderman, and I feel like there's a real benefit in sort of breaking that glass ceiling. I just don't think Jody Gondek is anything more than what we've always had. While Gondek's refusal to swear him in sends a message that violence against women is a serious matter, it does nothing materially to improve survivors' lives or change the culture of violence in policing. Rather than working to dismantle the material ways in which women are made vulnerable, Gondek relies on symbolism to stand in for real politics. And I also would throw Justin Trudeau under this exact same bus. His veneer of progressivism is so fucking empty and so fucking weak. Yeah, a token. Absolutely. I honestly had hope that Trudeau was going to be a more progressive leader than he is, but he gets up and he talks about, it's why is my cabinet half women? It's 2018. That's a great answer, but he's done nothing to make women's lives better. Women on the margins are kept there by city council, police, developers, and other powerful decision makers and leaders who determine what services are available, who is served, and even where they can safely live. Rather than committing to increased sexual violence services, more funding for shelters, or expanding violence prevention programs, Gondek focuses her wins on symbolic victories. When Gondek was a councillor, she even tried to kill Calgary's mental health and addiction strategy in commission. This is actually hitting me in a very weird place right now. My best friend in the world used to live in this small town. And in this small town, she had a friend named Natasha. And Natasha struggled with drug addiction. And Natasha has become Edmonton's first murder victim of the year. She was murdered by her boyfriend's daughter and a friend or more friends, I'm not sure particularly. But they stabbed the shit out of her, including through her eye into her brain. And she is now dead. And I look at that and I'm like, all of the policies that I keep talking about dealing with drugs in a healthy way, about dealing with poverty in a healthy way, about dealing with mental health in a healthy way, all of those things would have had material benefit on this situation and could have led to her surviving. And we didn't do that. Sorry, that's an aside. We have a long way to go, even in lefty liberal land. And there's a link here. I will pop open. Victoria Councillor Charmarc Dubois, named noteworthy historical figure by Canadian Heritage. Dubois, who fled war in Somalia as a child, is the first black person on City Council in over 150 years. That's a terrible statement that it's the first black person on council in over 150 years. Like that, wow. That feels like maybe a little bit late. A Victoria City Councillor has been recognized as a noteworthy historical figure by Canadian Heritage as part of the Federal Department's celebration of Black History Month. Charmarque, I don't know how to say that properly. Charmarc Dubois is how I will try and say. And Charmarc, if you're watching, I'm sorry I'm butchering your name. The first black councillor for the city in more than 150 years, was acknowledged as a respected community leader with a voice of bold and courageous policies through his passion for diversity, inclusion, and building equitable, inclusive, and compassionate communities. Charmarquis? Okay, my bad. A lot of focus on diversity. We need to focus on inclusion. We need more focus on inclusion. I think, like, really, at the core of it, what I hope we will eventually get to is that we're just choosing good people, and the good people are from whatever background they want. That sounds like I'm doing the colorblind thing, and it probably is in the current context, but what I'm getting at is we should be in a place as a society where none of this shit matters. And we're not, and that's pathetic. So we do have to break down the glass ceiling. I wish it wasn't Jody Gondek, but it's good to see, you know, when Naheed Nenshi was elected, it was good to see a person of color as the mayor of Calgary. Jody Gondek being a female person of color, also very fucking cool. I just want for the people who get those positions to be better than Gondek, if that makes sense. What do you think of the NDP's petition to make hate crime symbols and flags illegal? Ban the Confederate battle flag, for example, and make it illegal, or the Nazi cross. Both of those are included in the petition. I actually hadn't heard of that. My take on it, I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like flying those things in public is a super dick move. And I don't think I would oppose making that illegal. But I also, like, if we've seen anything in the last little while, it's that white nationalists own printing companies and come up with fucking new graphics and new names all the time. I almost prefer when they wave, like, you know, white pride worldwide instead of, you know, white identity shit or you know, subtle QAnon nods or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if I have an answer to that. How will it help? At least they identify themselves this way. I feel it speaks to the idiots flying them, but the symbol itself, should we ban the Christian cross or Islamic crescent? They'll find another symbol to make hateful, like gay used to be happy, not sure. Yeah, at the end of the day, that's my only and I don't even know, I wouldn't say fear, but like confusion on the subject is where, what are we going to get out of that ban? That said, and I think this is the most important thing that I can say in this conversation is I'm a fucking white dude. I don't like seeing Nazi symbols. I don't like seeing Confederate flags and shit like that. But whether or not I like it is kind of immaterial. I would genuinely want to hear from people of color on this, and from a variety of opinions from people of color. My own take on it is I'm not sure. But I don't live a life where like the Nazi flag is a threat to me. Absolutely. But it is not the same threat to me as it is to other people. And I think their voices need to be much more prominent on this topic, if that makes sense. It super sounds like I'm like, hey man, all flags matter or some shit, but like no. NDP. Okay, so let's just pop this open. See what this is all about. What do we got? NDP bill would ban hate symbols. NDP House Leader Peter Julian, MP from New West, tabled Bill C-229, a private member's bill that would prevent anyone from selling and displaying symbols that promote hatred. The symbols that would be banned are swastikas and other Nazi emblems of the genocidal regime, Ku Klux Klan symbols, and the Confederate flag, symbols of slavery, racism, and white supremacy. A tool designed to address the growing violence and hatred in Canadian communities. Everyone has the right to feel welcome, secure, and respected in their community. Allowing these symbols of hatred to be freely sold in stores and publicly displayed is re-traumatizing for people who've been and continue to be targets of violence and oppression, said Julian. Symbols that have been used to incite violence against people have no place in our society. I hope all members of Parliament will support this bill and that the government will work with us to ensure symbols of hate aren't normalized or tolerated in any way and make our communities better for everyone. I still feel really conflicted about this particular thing in terms of utility and in terms of the slippery slope that it presents. I don't know. I'm gonna have to say, as a honky, I don't have enough of a answer here. It'd be okay making graffiti like that illegal, or I'd be okay making graffiti like that illegal, or anyone else who raised a flag like that maybe. They are illegal in Germany. They go to fucking jail for that shit. Yes, that much I do know, and I 100% understand Germany's reaction there. I'd ban the Nazi cross and the Confederate flag in a heartbeat. Perhaps my privilege is showing, but where would it stop, or is that stupid? Okay, illegal to promote symbols of hatred. Yes, I back that. Would a skit in a comedy routine be exempt if it ridiculed the haters? I think there's walls of weird that get brushed up on that. At the end of the day, like, I have no desire to ever see a Nazi flag, and if I saw one, while, say, walking down the street, if some fucking convoy prick drove by with a Nazi flag flying, I would be angry and scared. And that is exactly the point of those. I would not in any way oppose them banning that. I just don't know if I would, like, support it directly. I sound like such a liberal right now. Fuck. It's the people promoting hate that I want to get at, not the symbol. The symbol is a focal point, but the people behind it, you want to get at. Liberal lefty, Jim. It's true. What can I say? I'm a shit lib. I'm no better than Drew. So sad. Yeah, I don't know. I really feel like my voice on this probably is an unimportant voice. Aside from just like, I am a member of this community or this city. Do symbols incite violence? I think symbols do embolden people. And I think that when you see people driving around with swastikas or Dixie flags or whatever, it is a to the people who are open to such things. So yeah, I would not oppose that legislation at all. I don't know that I would rush, like it wouldn't be my legislation that I push for. If I was sitting as a member of parliament, I probably would vote to approve that legislation. But it hits in that weird, shitty, like, free speech bullshit area. Oh, I hate that. I hate that. I hate that. I would be fine with racists going back into hiding and shutting the fuck up. Yeah, exactly. Right? The more we see, the more we think that they're normalized. And the more they feel normalized. While at the same time, I ban Nazi symbols and Confederate flags in a heartbeat. Needs constraints somehow. And I think that's the big thing for me, and that's why I'm sort of waffling a little bit, is because of I would want to make sure that there's limits put in place. Because, as you said, like, is the Christian cross a symbol of hate? I would argue that yeah, it's done a lot of fucking vile shit. And, you know, using the residential schools example, like the statement that was made in that article was reliving trauma. I would imagine people who went to residential schools, some of them may very well look at that and relive that trauma. It's just that fucking weird shit. We don't have free speech. We have inciting laws, which this falls under. And that is one of the things. We do have free speech in the sense that we've implemented laws around free speech. The implication is always that as a free Canadian, you can speak your mind, and then we do these sort of the limitation pieces. And I don't disagree with that approach, but the implicit, you know, you have free speech in Canada is not, if I understand things correctly, is not actually true. But I think that's also true of like everywhere on earth, right? You have free speech, but sedition is a crime. You have free speech, but you can go to jail for stochastic terrorism and so, you know, like that kind of shit. The other aspect is I'm not afraid of a Nazi cross or a Confederate flag wearing asshole, as I know I'm not the target. I can shut up and coexist, but that's cowardly bullshit. Fuck the Nazis and Southern assholes. Bad enough. Yeah. I do have a different, like, once upon a time, a buddy of mine gave me an old tank top of his, and it was the Independent Truck Company. And the Independent Truck Company's logo has been, since I was a kid, a variation of an Iron Cross. They're in no way a Nazi company. They're skateboarding trucks that you use to, like, attach your wheels to the skateboard. And yeah, not all of us can coexist. That's exactly the thing. As a white person, I have that out, even though I refuse to take it. But that is a fact. I can be like, well, yeah, but it's not me they're coming after, so hide in the background. And I think that's kind of what I Am Canadian was doing, was calling himself out on that and being like, yeah, that's a thing. So, anyways, I got this Independent Trucks shirt, and I love Independent Trucks. When I was a kid, like when I was a skater, they were the fucking trucks to have. When I bought a skateboard in, like, I don't know, like 20 years ago, or less than that, probably like 15 years ago, I bought a skateboard, and it would, like, skateboard to and from work and shit. And I had Indy Trucks. Indy Trucks was always one of those things. And I was walking down the street one day and wearing my, I had a button-up shirt that I took off because it was a summer day, and I had that tank top on underneath. I'm walking down the street, and I saw the look of fear on a woman's face. And keep in mind, back then I had fully shaved head. And what this woman saw, she was a woman of color. She saw this great big monster walking with a shaved head and an iron cross. And I'm like walking, kind of, listening to music, not really paying attention. And I see the fear on her face and put two and two together, sort of like did the math. And I was like, oh shit, I am the reason why she's afraid right now. And that freaked me out. And I was like, but this isn't like a Nazi thing. And it's not a Nazi symbol. It's not even like a Nazi iron cross. But still, like, that doesn't change the fact that I scared the shit out of that woman, and probably a million other women that I never noticed. So I got rid of the shirt. I threw it out. And it was, it you know, it was a perhaps some would see it as a dumb thing, but I was like, I don't care what the reality of that symbol is. The practical reality is I don't want to scare other people. I don't want to present that fear to them. So yeah, like I get it. Let's see. Not Sugar Ray. Yeah, and I can't either. As soon as my thoughts are known, and I'm the enemy too. So as a spine building exercise, ban them and shout it to the assholes. I'm not affected drives a lot of passive behavior. I'm learning allyship and activism, aka doing something. I'm a pathetic asshole, and you're going to have to keep calling me out on it when I get passive or ignore that for whatever reason. You know what the thing is though that I love about you, I am Canadian, is that you accept those call outs. The easiest thing, especially for us white folk, is just to be like, yeah, but that's not what I meant, or you know, like to defer and deflect and stuff. But you know, that's the thing. You were like, hey, I did a thing. I need to do better, and I applaud that. Texas makes it illegal to not call out trans people. There's an example of hate in the system. Yes, that fucking Texas anti-trans, or the whatever they call it, the bill that they just put through is fucking. Every single Texan should be embarrassed to call themselves a Texan. That is just disgusting. I am not a trans person, but I am a person. And so my humanity should allow me to make room for all kinds of people, whether they are exactly like me or not, to coexist happily. And that whole fucking piece of legislation is just dog shit hate crime as far as I'm concerned. Fuck Texas. Fuck whoever it was that put that in whoever voted for it. Fuck that hard. It is disgusting. Dear Texan, do you rat out trans people? Then fuck you, you piece of shit. Yes, and I'd like to point out that it was also Texas that decided that it would be important to rat out women for having abortion thoughts. So, yeah, Texas, you're nailing it. I feel bad for Austin. Like, Austin is this little liberal enclave in the middle of Texas. Like, I can't imagine living in Texas. Oh, I mean, I'd never live in Texas. I don't think my cousin's hot enough. But, just fucking hateful. Their government is so reactionary and so... it's this whole thing that we're doing right now where we're hiding behind... cancel culture. God damn it. I was joking with my kid today. He was talking about how apparently Louis C.K. was going to do a show in the Ukraine, and then his flight got canceled. And I was like, so the left is canceling flying now? Obviously kidding. But all that identity politics bullshit leads to real lasting harm. And is just, it's so populist and so stupid. You know, these movements of like, you know, what if there's a bad person who's trans? Did you ever think of that? I mean, yeah, there are bad people on all sides. Forgive my saying that, but you know what I mean? Like, what? This does not make sense. Why do you target a particular group because they could also have bad people in them? Why not just target, I don't know, bad fucking people, of which trans people are not one? Fucking assholes. I hate hate. Yes, absolutely. I can't stand a fence sitter. Good on both sides. Love everyone. Peace and acceptance at all costs. No, pick a fucking side. Yes, I fucking agree. And I find that in the areas in my life where I see that I have done the fence sitting, it's almost always been out of privilege. Like what I Am Canadian was talking about a second ago is when we catch it, because like, you know, our us white folks, our privilege often blindsides us. We don't even realize we're acting from a place of privilege a lot of the time. And that's, you know, that's just as true for me today as it was for, you know, like rich white people and whatever, right? We sometimes don't even realize we're doing it. And when we see it and we recognize that fence sitting is one of the classic examples of like, well, you know, I can be a centrist. I can be, and it's that fucking half-ass empty, like, can't we all just get along? Why does the world have to be hard? Maybe it isn't. Maybe it isn't hard. Maybe if I just, think happy thoughts, then the world will just be better. And sometimes happy thoughts are not enough. Sometimes you gotta, stand for things. And so when I see myself sit on a fence, I absolutely try to, bring that up in internal monologue and be like, what the fuck side am I on? No, seriously. I need to pick a side. I need to stand for something, because if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything, as the saying goes. And that centrist bullshit is why we are in a lot of the situations we're in, because we go, you know what, it can't, no, let's just get along, okay? Let the convoy people honk their horns. How bad are horns? They've got bouncy castles. How bad is that? Come on, there's good people on both sides. And then you go, wait, this is a far-right organized group trying to overthrow a government. That's probably not awesome. That's probably not something I can support. So maybe I don't fucking care if there's good people on both sides. Good people can be wrong. The fuck? Check Your Privilege went from a personal attack to, what am I missing that I need to uncover so I'm not a selfish asshole? But it did take time. Yeah, that is, same journey I've been on. I remember very vehemently denying that I had privilege, or that it was as powerful as people were saying, because I grew up poor, or at least poorer than the people that were around me. I certainly, had experienced, being a punk. I'd experienced negativity at the hands of cops. There was all sorts of things that I could be like, yeah, no, I'm not privileged. But then when you peel that away and you realize the difference between me and someone else, there are certain things, there are a lot of things that I get away with or I can do because no one will stop me or no one will, punish me or whatever based on the color of my skin. I have certain opportunities based entirely on the color of my skin, whether or not they apply 100% across the board to all white people, or if it's simply just easier for white people. That's fucking privilege. And it's so hard to recognize that sometimes when we're just starting out on our little journeys of self-discovery. But it's there, and it's fucking important. It's the introspection bit that makes all the difference. Yeah, I think that's the key, right? I think if we don't question it, and we, even if we come back with the wrong answer, at least we started the conversation. And a lot of the times, even with the wrong answer, you get closer and closer until you realize that your answer is wrong. It's tough to look in the mirror sometimes, but necessary. I have had to do a lot of work myself as an Indigenous woman who's white passing most of the time. Yeah. I'm taking your word for it, as opposed to yes, I can tell you that you've done this work, because what the fuck do I know about it? But I cannot imagine the sort of the trapped between two worlds vibe of being an Indigenous woman and being white passing, and the frustration on other Indigenous people who you get away with stuff that they don't, and things it's. Do you ever have to justify working the other side? Curious, not hostile, by the way. I don't know what you mean by working the other side. I know that wasn't to me, but I don't justify shit. I'm very clear about my intention and objectives. Fucking God bless you, love. Oh, man. I actually can see the look on your face, and it's one of a couple of possible answers. But as you wrote that, what I believe you looked like was fucking do what I want. God damn it. And you know what? No one should have to justify goddamn anything. All right, I think it's time before my throat gives out. Yeah, definitely not hostile. Exactly. I wouldn't expect you to be God damn it, no. It was more like that. Fuck that. I'll do what I want. I think it's time for some weekly humiliations. A little of the karaokes. So let me get set up real quick here with the karaokeing. And yeah, we can cut over. Yes, that was my face. I figured as much. All right. We're going to start with a little REM, Losing My Religion. hopefully after having talked for 3 hours, I know it's done. sing it because I was talking about with a friend of mine about celebrity death yesterday, and one of the ones that definitely had an impact on me was Mr. Chai Pick, so I figured I would sing a little painful reminder. I do love that song, like genuinely love that song. And I never thought I would get to see Stiff Little Fingers in concert, and then they were coming to Calgary, and it was like, holy shit, that's amazing. And I could not afford tickets. And then my friend Siobhan gave me a ticket because she had it next to him. It was like, you need to see this band. And so I got to see them, and it was a fucking soggy dream come true, even though it was at that shitty fucking back alley bar, whatever they were calling it at the time. Can't win them all. I didn't say hi. Hi, I am, or YYC live music. I hope you're doing well. Life is fairly decent. I feel like I might be done. The throat's a little damaged after last night's Vern's related debauchery. I should mention that next week on the 5th, I will be performing at Dickens for the Caveat CD release party, which is going to be a fucking amazing show. It'll start with us, Bodies of Everest, and then it'll be Balragath, some sweet power metal, Black Pestilence, which is like this strange hybrid of like thrash and punk and death and all this stuff. It's going to be amazing. And then Caveat, who are like gods of the world as far as I'm concerned. And then the following weekend, I'm playing at Vern's, again with Bodies of Everest, and this time it'll be us, Allison Eagles, and Skulk Partition Route. So a little bit more of the weirdness, which I'm 100% okay with. And on the Bodies of Everest front, we should have a new video dropping real soon. We'll see. Depends on getting things mastered in time. But I have no doubt in the person doing the mastering. They did the mastering for the last video we did and did a phenomenal job. So song's recorded, the mastering is underway. I'm super stoked. And now I'm working on the next of the videos. We did a bunch of drone footage for this one, so that's kind of fun. So yeah, I'm keeping busy. I'm excited for your music vids. Yeah, we kind of talked about this as an idea to... rather than trying to like swallow recording all at once and stuff, we were like, let's do a song at a time, and we'll release a song and a video, and then when we have, the songs out, we can collab it all up into an EP or an LP, depending on how many we do, and make it available on like Bandcamp and stuff. But all the stuff is available on Spotify, on everything, and I love the process because, like, when I record the bass, I'm literally just going down in my basement, plugging in the stuff that I've bought for that purpose, and do a quick recording of the bass. The DI that I bought is, I think it was like $200 or something like that, and then the rest is just the shit that I use for my bass. And I've got the Reaper software that I use cost me $60, so like a total outlay of fuck all. And I can record my bass, send it up through the Google Drives to the people in the band, and they can, we can all do that with our parts and put together the song, and then we send that all to the guy to master it, and we get cool results. And meanwhile, I work on videos and stuff, and I don't think it's like exclusive. Like, it's not fair to imply that it's exclusively me, but I'm the one who's done sort of the structure for all of the videos, and then we sort of negotiate over, hey, this clip doesn't really fit there, or whatever. The first one, the Sons of Sedition, there was really none of that because it sort of told a story and did the job. The one that we're releasing right away is a bit different, and there was a little bit of fun back and forth figuring out the right way to go about it. And the new one will be a lot more of that, I think. Might need some noise suppression in the corners down there, in the basement corners. There's because of the way that the recording works, I literally am plugging from my amp or even from my pedal, depending on how I want to do it, directly into the DI, so it's not getting any of the basement noise, but definitely the basement is noisy. And if we were like recording drums in my basement, it would not work because there'd be just too much background, which is a shame because the drums sound fucking amazing in my basement. But we're actually, what we historically have done is Reno has a plastic kit, or whatever the fuck you call it, like electronic kit that he but for the videos, that paneling. But the thing is that the videos are not, like, we actually only play to a metronome. So Reno always has the beats per minute in his head, bleeping in his ears. So we're always, in line with the song. So what we're playing, we just mute the volume, and then copy and paste. That didn't work as well with Sons of Sedition because I think we were all still kind of tweaking our parts when we did the filming, and so there's spots where you can definitely see that our fingers are off. But yeah, we're not playing it along with the recording or anything. Like we literally just play the song, and we know how fast it's got to go. And you know, the rule in being in a band is that the drummer is always right. So as soon as you get that, and you're like, okay, well the drummer is always right. So if I'm off and the drummer is you know always right, then I must be wrong. So I have to adjust to the drummer. And then if the drummer has the metronome in his ear, and he's a good drummer, then this should never be a thing. You should always be able to play sort of, you know, start to finish, do your songs. If you know the structure and you know the bare bones of it, then you should be good. So it's kind of a thing. I did when I was in Keith Morrison band, we recorded a video, and going off the voice video you did for something else. You mean the Grinning Barretts song? Yes, I would absolutely agree on the Grinning Barretts. It's really, I think they added some effects to my voice, but I also think that there's a lot of like background noise, and that is something that if I was to be recording vocals for anything, I definitely would not be in the basement, because there's no way to not have a microphone that picks all that up. Yeah, so the Grinning Barretts is that song. What's it called? It's often in my intro to the stream with my pal Pat, his old band in Victoria, that they got me and the Mighty Mark to contribute some voice stuff for the COVID beginning times. I like grungy though. Yes, grungy's good. But grungy doesn't fit with a lot of the stuff that I'm in right now. Rather listen to vinyl any day than anything. You know what? I don't have an opinion on that, and I think it's because I'm like, I mostly listen to music on my computer. The people I know that love vinyl, like I don't own a record player. I've bought some vinyl, but I like literally don't own a record player. I keep wanting to buy one, but to do it right, it's always more money than I have. But I imagine vinyl's better, but I'm like also, I find anything that you listen to and every time you listen to it, it degrades the experience, just feels shitty. Yeah, it takes too much room. I want to get one of them ridiculous, like, full, big-ass Victrola monsters that, you know, like a giant wood crate full of a record player. Like, that's totally how I want to do it, but I got no room for it, and realistically, I got no money for it, so listen to old blues with all the background. Yes, and I love the imperfections in those old blues recordings and old jazz recordings. Like, I love the shit out of that. I'll listen to, even on my phone, like, you know, I'll hop on YouTube Music. You know how you have, I don't know if anyone uses YouTube Music, but you have, like, your various mixes. I have one mix that's very proggy, and I have one mix that's very stoner-y, and I have one mix that's like straight Bill Evans and Miles Davis and shit, and it's just fucking, it's so good. And I'll put that on like when I'm cooking or when I'm just sort of puttering around the house, and just like, it just soothes me. I'm a savage beast, I guess. What can I say? You do? Yeah. YouTube Music. It's Mississippi Muddy Waters, etc. Lol. Yeah. I have always been like, you know, I'm a Miles Davis fan. My mom got me into Miles Davis when I was like 12, and probably younger than that actually. And Bill Evans. There's another one that years later. So I liked Miles Davis, but I wasn't like deep in the lore or anything like that. And then I heard Kind of Blue, and it's just like so gorgeous and different. And when I first heard it, I didn't actually know what it was. I was in a record store in Vancouver, and this song is playing, and I was like, oh my God, that is like the perfect trumpet tone. What the fuck is this? And I went up and I was like, dude, what is this album that's playing? And I'm expecting it to be something like new and cool. And he's like, ugh, that's Miles Davis, stupid. So I bought it and listened to it on a loop, and I was like, it's so good. I got talking to my buddy Greg, who was the sound guy at the distillery, and also was getting a degree in music composition at the time. And he was like, oh, you like modal jazz? That's what that album is modal jazz. You should check out Esbjorn Svensson Trio. And holy fuck, Esbjorn Svensson Trio is the shit. There's a song called Dodge the Dodo. Highly recommend. Go on YouTube Music, type in Dodge the Dodo. And Esbjorn is ESSBJORN, if I'm not mistaken. But EST also works. I love all the underground that wasn't decent for public consumption. Yes. Again, when we were actually driving back, I think it was when we were driving back from the shooting of the video last weekend, there's a cellist in Bodies of Everest who's like, plays in orchestras and shit. And we were in the car together and we were talking about music. And he mentioned love and jazz and blues and stuff, and I mentioned Billie Holiday and how like I generally ignored Billie Holiday because Billie Holiday was always that like really, in my mind, really sort of poppy and empty blues and jazz until I heard Strange Fruit. And just the fucking balls on Billie Holiday being a black woman in a time where black women were like facing all of that they faced. And that song is, holy shit, it is so fucking powerful. I'll check it out. Acceptable until, I don't know what you mean acceptable until. Yeah, I don't have a clue what you mean by that. Did I say acceptable until and then like drop off or something? Break Your Heart music, Billy. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that's the thing is I had, I really didn't hear a lot of Billie Holiday's music, and what I heard was that, standards and shit that, like, okay, that's fine. And then I heard Strange Fruit, and it's, if you're not familiar, I'm sure you are, but it's a song that I'll never be able to sing because I'm a white dude. Yeah, Nina, fucking so good. But Strange Fruit is basically, there used to be postcards in the South that had photos of lynched black people. And it would say, that tree's got some strange fruit. Here. And this song by this, like, tiny little black woman is so full of mourning and hate and, like, how fucking dare you. Like, it is the most protesty protest song I can imagine, and literally like just fucking freezes my blood every goddamn time. You know who else I love from the jazz perspective? Shit, now I'm having trouble thinking of her name. Modern, she's the daughter of Ravi Shankar. Nora Jones, is that right? Let me just make sure, because I could be wrong, and then I would look like an idiot, which would be exactly the first time that's happened. I'm sure it's Nora Jones. But if I go to the old Googles, there's a Wikipedia, I bet that'll tell me, yeah, her dad's Ravi Shankar. Okay, so it's Nora Jones. It is Nora Jones. The reason that I know, not the reason that I know that her dad is Ravi Shankar, but it popped into my brain because my buddy and I went to a record store once, and I was like, I want to get a good jazz record. And he's like, what about that girl? Her dad was on The Simpsons. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, her dad was on The Simpsons. And I'm like, you're going to have to be a little more fucking clear than that. Like, Jenny Grainig? I don't fucking know. And he's like, yeah, he plays like that guitar with like a whole lot of... And I was like, are you talking about Ravi Shankar? He's like, yeah. I'm like, that's how you know Ravi Shankar? He plays a guitar on The Simpsons? Like, what the fuck? So I bought a Nora Jones CD that day. Yes, beautiful black woman who was advertised, or I think you mean acceptable, until she stepped off the curb and walked down the middle of the street. Yes, and I feel like jazz and blues has a lot of voice given to women who were outside the coloring book lines, and who didn't color in the lines and refused to stand on the curb and stuff. But I feel like the society that was prevalent at the time was, yeah, you could do that, but if you wanted to be successful, you had to play the game and make the boot, scoot, and boogie bullshit type songs, and then when you didn't, you were a threat. I think that's a fair assessment of life then. But Nina was never traditionally beautiful, but she has all the soul which made her beautiful. As a white, I always look at Rita McNeil and say, like, she had not my style of music, but just an incredible voice. And I guarantee you, Rita McNeil would not be able to make it as a singer right today, as a new singer, because the industry would be like, yeah, no, maybe you can record like vocals, and then we'll get like someone to lip sync. That's how gross we are. And yeah, Nina was definitely the soul. Oh. Anyways, you're clearly effective, Sugar. I was all set to wrap this up at 3. It's now 3:30. You monster. I would never listen to Rita M. I'm assuming, like, is there something I don't know there? Rita McNeil is good. Maybe there's, like, is she a terrible person? I don't know. Did I step in it just now? God, I hope not. I hope Rita McNeil's not like some closet Nazi. Like, that would be the fucking worst. Not my style. Plus, she's not attractive. Yeah, she's definitely, not my style. And I don't care about the attractive part. I think she's got a great voice. And yeah, that's that. You know what? I'm gonna share the link. We never actually made our way through this Jody Gondek is not your friend thing. So I'm just gonna put that link in chat. And then I would listen for a minute if she was at least attractive. Oh, you're bad. If that's true, you're a terrible, terrible monster. Because as an ugly person, we can sing. We have beautiful voices. And that's just that. Anyways, I'm going to shut her down. I feel like it's time. You're not that awful. It's a bias. We all have biases. I'm not gonna fault you for it. But yeah, I am going to call it a day. I appreciate very much. I had a really fun stream. Sang some fantastic songs, including one celebrity cringe song for Mr. Putin. And now you can tell by my gravelly voice that it's about to fall out of my throat. So we'll call it there. I appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your day. I absolutely will, and you as well, Sugar, and anyone else who's watching. I am a huge streamer, so there's probably tens of millions of people watching right now. If I look, I see... Yeah, no, there's not. But I knew there wasn't. I was just messing the whole time. I was messing. But I hope everyone that did take a chance to watch the stream, I hope they enjoyed, and I hope you have a great rest of your weekend, great rest of your life, all that kind of stuff, and hopefully we'll see you again. All right. Ciao.